mamwe wa maundu maria egukorwo agikihutiriria muthenya wa umuthi na ningi mwerekera wa riboti ya kamiti ya urumwe na wiguano iria irega kunengeranwo kuriwe iria koretwe irehete ndugamano gatagati ga atongoria Azimio amwe makienda ethie na mbere uri hana aria angi makiuga ndiagiriire Mheshimiwa Martha Karua na mwaho wake makiuga maundu maya timo matumite andu maumire mirurungano no ni gitumi kia ngarama ya muturire giatumite maundu maya kana andu makoma magitia mirurungano hihi riboti ino eguthie naku kuri na ritana mamwe mamendekithia maria mariho ta guthondeka wabici ya mutongoria wa mung'ethaniro guthondeka wabici ya prime minister mane maundu mekubatara gukorwo gukigia na referendum kura ya mawoni hihi ni gugukinya hau maya no mamwe maria turerigirira meko makihutiririo imwe kwemwe gutware nginyagia thingiraini wa iregi jitagwo Njoroge wa Kimani.
Nilikwambia hii maneno mimi siwezani naye. Naona sasa. Mimi ni mtu ya kijiji. Paka rangi mingi.
Ucio ni mutongoria wa bururi Ndagitari William Ruto muthenya wa umuthi kana mahinda-ini maya ari kuria thingiraini wa iregi undu umwe na andikia mohoro ni twakiona ni hindi arakihariria ni undu wa gukorwo agikiambiriria Ndereti ile gukorwo ikiambiriria ndagika eno nginyagia thaa igikinya thaa 3 cia utuku wa umuthi na maya mothe tuko tugikurehera imwe kwemwe kuma guku gwa Kameme TV muthigi wa ruri koguo ndugathiore mutambo no mbere ndaya reke twambe turore mamwe maria mahanikite na ni ati Minister munene Musalia Mudavadi muthenya wa umuthi ni areganite na ati thirikari ya Kenya kuri itemi orio the nyitite hari ngucanio rere yumiria bururi-ini wa DRC Congo thutha wa gikundi kimwe kia mung'ethaniro gucemania guku Nairobi muthenya wa ira na gukorwo gikirekereria ndumiriri ya kuonania ati ni kinyitanite na kurehe hamwe ikundi ndegani iria ikiroretwo ikirwa na thirikari ya President Felix Tshisekedi. Kuringana na Minister munene Musalia Mudavadi ni ati Kenya kuri na gatiba iheanite wiyathi nginyagia wa kwaria na nyumba cia mohoro na koguo gutiramakania mundu o wothe no ke Kenya naranirie na andikia mohoro no thirikari tikuga ni iranyita itemi maundu-ini macio ona kuri uguo Musalia ni akiugite ni mambikite uthuthuria niguo kumenya hihi ni kana ikundi ciracemanitie Nairobi ni iriku na muoroto wacio ni iriku maya mokite thutha wa bururi wa DRC Congo gukorwo wititie baruthi wao kuma guku bururi-ini na aracoka kwao muthenya wa ira reke tuone riboti ino twaririirio ni Mwaura wa Gunya.
Thikũ ĩmwe thutha wa bururi wa DR Congo gwatha baruthi wao guku bururi-ini John Kaluga acokererie kwao na ihenya ta ũrĩa kwahoteka ũndũ ũmwe na maratha baruthi wa Kenya bururi-ini ũcio gũthiĩ gũcokia ciũria ciĩgiĩ kũmbwo kwa ngwatanĩro ya mũng'ethanĩro gatagatĩ ka ikundi itiganĩte cia bururi ũcio gũkũ bururi-ini. Minister munene Musalia Mudavadi ni ahiũkĩte kũhorohia ndũgamano ĩno akiuga Kenya ndĩkuruhanĩtio na njĩra yothe harĩ kũmbwo kwa ngwatanĩro ĩyo.
Kuna mambo yalikuwa yametokea kidogo tu kati ya taifa la Kenya na marafiki wetu kutoka DRC. Kuna watu walikuja hapa Kenya wakatoa statement na hiyo statement ikawatia wasiwasi, lakini tumerekebisha. Nimetoa ujumbe na nataka nifuatilie nihakikishe kwamba wanajua kwamba Kenya haina nia mbaya kwao kamwe.
Kihumo kia ngucanio ĩno nĩ ndũmĩrĩri ĩrĩa yarekereirio nĩ mũtongoria wa mũng'ethanĩro bũrũri-inĩ wa DRC Cornel Nanga akĩanĩrĩra kũmba ngwatanĩro ya kĩũteti na gĩkundi kĩa itoi cia M23 nĩguo gũkang'ethanĩra na President Felix Tshisekedi gĩthurano-inĩ kĩnene kĩrĩa gĩkahanĩka tarĩki 20 mweri ũyũ.
Katiba yetu ambayo nyinyi na mimi na Wakenya wengine tulipitisha, ambayo ilipeana mamlaka makubwa kwa watu kuwa na uhuru wa kuzungumza akiwa amepita hapa ama akiwa mwenyeji anazungumza, na hiyo katiba ni ile ambayo inaongoza. Lakini hatuwezi kutumia mchanga wa Kenya kuleta shida katika sehemu zingine.
Ndumiriri yake Mudavadi ahinyĩrĩirie atĩ Kenya ndĩrĩ handũ ya kuruhanire harĩ kwanĩrĩrwo kwa ngwatanĩro ĩno thikũ igĩrĩ hĩtũku gũkũ bũrũri-inĩ. Akiuga Kenya nĩ bũrũri wendete thayũ na ndũrĩ na mũbango wothe wa kũingĩrĩra wĩyathi wa bũrũri wa DRC.
Taifa la Kenya halihusiki na mambo yote maovu kuhusu mataifa mengine ambayo yako hapa ama yako kwingine. Na isitoshe, United Nations imepeana nafasi kwa Kenya kuongoza kikosi cha kuleta utulivu katika taifa la Haiti. Kwa hivyo credentials za Kenya kwa mambo ya amani ni credentials ambazo ni nzito zaidi.
Kũringana na Mudavadi, Kenya ĩkoretwo mũhari wa mbere harĩ mĩhang'o ya gũthingatithia thayũ mabũrũri-inĩ ma gĩtarũ kĩa Afrika ya irathĩro. Kuona Kenya nĩyo ĩkoretwo ĩgĩtongoria mbirarũ cia Afrika ya irathĩro iria ikoretwo iking'ethanĩra na itoi cia M23 bũrũri-inĩ wa DRC.
Kenya remains a committed nation to bring peace and stability in the whole region, and we encourage consolidation of democracy in the whole region.
Kwa ihinda rĩrĩ mbirarũ cia mabũrũri ma Afrika ya irathĩro irĩ mũbango-inĩ wa kwĩyeheria kuma bũrũri-inĩ wa DRC thutha wa kwĩrĩkana itirĩ na umithio ihotete gũkinyanĩria. Ithenya rĩacio rĩgĩtanywo kuoywo nĩ cia ũrũmwe wa mabũrũri ma Afrika ya mũhuro nĩyo SADC.
And we wish the people of DRC the very best as they enter into their election, as they consolidate the democratic process kwa taifa lao. Na sisi tunataka wamalize, tuendelee na shughuli kama the East African Community, sisi sote tujenge taifa letu.
Mũingĩ wa DRC ũtanyĩtwo gũgathiĩ irebe-inĩ ihinda-inĩ rĩa thikũ ithatũ ciũkĩte nĩguo gũgathura atongoria erũ, kũrĩa President wa ihinda rĩrĩ Felix Tshisekedi aretha gũthura itena rĩa kerĩ gũtongoria bũrũri ũcio. Ngĩribotera Kameme TV, njĩtagwo Mũhũra wa Gunya.
Kũgena kuo, borithi mwena wa Thika kaunti-inĩ ya Kiambu nĩ mahithũkĩtie indo cia thitima cia kambuni ya Kenya Power cia mamirioni ma mbeca mũciĩ-inĩ ũmwe itũũra-inĩ rĩa Kimushu. Hamwe na indo iria cihithũkĩtio birigiceni-inĩ ĩno nĩ hamwe na indo cia transformer, iratũ cia mbirarũ, conductors cia thitima hamwe na indo ingĩ. Mwandĩki witũ Mathiũ Ndung'u nĩ atũharĩrĩirie riboti ĩno.
Itũũra-inĩ rĩa Kimushu gĩcigo-inĩ mbunge gĩa Thika nĩkuo borithi mahithũkĩtie indo cia mamirioni ma mbeca cia thitima iria ciĩrĩkanĩte nĩ cia kũiywo kuma kambuni-inĩ ya ũtambia wa thitima ya Kenya Power. Indo iria ihũthĩrĩtio birigiceni-inĩ ĩno nĩ hamwe na waya cia ũtambia wa thitima, ndoo mũgwanja cia maguta ma transformer, apron na iratũ cia kũhaica iting'i-inĩ cia thitima gatagatĩ ka indo ingĩ.
Tuliweza kupata information kutoka kwa an informer from Kimushu ya kwamba kuna mtu ameweka vitu za stima. Ndio tuliungana na askari wa Kimushu police post, ndio tukaweza kuelekezwa mahali hapo.
Agĩkĩra ũhoro ũyũ mũkonde DCI wa Thika ithũĩro Jacinta Baika augĩte maabitha borithi marakunyĩirwo ndeto na indo cia thitima na iria ikoretwo ikĩigwo mũciĩ-inĩ ũcio magĩkwĩra nĩ cia ũici. Baika akiuga indo imwe iraigĩtwo rumu-inĩ cia mũciĩ ũcio na ingĩ ikaigwo tukutuku-inĩ.
Tukasearch kwa nyumba tukapata vitu za stima zenye zimekuwa vandalized kwa transformer. Zingine zilikuwa zimewekwa kwa tuktuk, zingine kwa rooms, na tukapata vitu kadhaa. Hizi ni millions of money, as you can see is not one transformer. Ni vitu yenye imechanganyikana, ni vitu ya transformer mingi, sio transformer moja. Kulingana na boards zenye tumepata za transformer zenye zinatolewa ndani, transformer mingi. Paka mafuta sio transformer moja. Kwa hivyo ni cartel yenye wamekuwa wakirepeat.
Hĩndĩ ya birigiceni ĩno mwĩkũĩrwo mũnene ũrĩa ũkũrĩkanĩte ta Dennis Karanja wa ũkũrũ wa mĩaka 27 nĩ araikirio ngono na kũrĩa ahingĩrĩtwo ceceni-inĩ ya borithi ya Thika gũkũ ũthuthuria ũgĩthiaga na mbere.
Yenye tumemwonji amesema sio ati ni tuktuk ilibeba na ngari kubwa ndio sileto hapo 3 days ago. Ametueleza sio peke yake, na ndio tunaendelea kuchunguza tujue akina wenye wana operate hii biashara ni akina nani.
Mũingĩ matũũra-inĩ nĩ ũrĩtio gũthiĩ na mbere na kũnyitanĩra na maabitha a borithi na njĩra ya kũruta ũhoro ũngĩteithĩrĩria ciĩko cia kũhukia wĩkinaĩ ũyũ.
Mingi tumepata venye mnaweza ona, na ndio tunahimiza wana community watupatie information na tutaact. Na iko transformer oil 140 liters. Hiyo nimeambiwa na watu wa Power ni kama 7 transformers zenye zimetumika kuwa fundraised kutumia hizi sikiibiwa hizo oil.
Kurumirira uthukangia wa tabarĩra cia ũthii wa na mbere cia indo cia thirikari tareri miberethi ya maĩ na ndaraca gatagatĩ ka indo ingĩ, thirikari nĩ ĩkoretwo ĩgĩkĩrĩra mũkana thũgũrĩ ya wendia na ũgũri wa cuma ngũrũ gũkũ bũrũri-inĩ.
Ndio tunaimiza wananchi, ngari yote mkiona inabeba kitu mtatueleza ndio tuangalie ni nini.
Kuma itũra-inĩ rĩa Kĩmũcũ gĩcigo-inĩ kĩa ũmbunge gĩa Thika kaunti-inĩ ya Kiambu, rĩtwa rĩakwa nĩ Mathiũ Ndũng'ũ.
Na mwirori mwende o ta ũrĩa ngũkwĩrithĩirie hau kabere nĩ tũgũkorwo tũgĩthiĩ thingira-inĩ wa iregi. Ndagĩka ĩno ndĩrenda ngũtware kwĩmwe kwĩmwe nĩ hĩndĩ Ndereti gatagatĩ ga president na andĩki a mohoro ĩrambĩrĩria. Reke twĩrorere na tũthikĩrĩrie.
Mimi naitwa Ali Manzu, natoka KTN News na tuko hapa kwenye mjadala wazi na Mheshimiwa Rais jioni ya leo.
Good evening. My name is Grace Kuria Kanja from TV47, which is under Cape Media Limited.
Good evening. My name is Paul Wafula, an editor with the Business Daily. I represent the Nation Media Group, and thank you for having us this evening.
Hamjamboni, mimi kutoka K24 Media Max Network Limited.
Nami ni Kamchemenza kutoka shirika la utangazaji humu nchini KBC. Karibu mtazamaji na shukran vile vile rais kwa kutualika.
Right, and Mr. President, the last time we met on the 4th of January, you said you'd have wanted to introduce yourself. So please go ahead.
William Ruto is my name, and I work for the people of Kenya.
Great. And Your Excellency, we're here to have a conversation about a review of your presidency, which started some 15 months ago, but also to be also specific to what has transpired in the year 2023. Of course, you've had a lot of activities. You've attended different events. You've spoken a lot about your focus, your vision for the country. And tonight, we want to spend some time to answer the questions of accountability, what you've been able to do, what you've not been able to do, and what the promises in the coming years. And of course, we'll start with a question about what has just happened to the Kenya shilling, which appears to be on a free fall.
Vyema kabisa, asante sana Sam. Mheshimiwa Rais, nadhani ni wazi kwamba kichochea uchumi huwa ni sarafu ya kimataifa na jinsi inavyofanya kazi yake katika taifa lolote lile. Hapa nchini Kenya, kusema ukweli, sarafu ya dola imekuwa ikipanda. Ni kama free fall kwa sasa, yani hakuna udhibiti ama control yoyote inayoendelea. Kumbuka Mheshimiwa Rais, hii pia inachochea katika biashara za uagizaji bidhaa hapa nchini, biashara zinazoendelea hapa nchini, wafanyabiashara wanaotumia dola, na inachangia sana katika uchumi kuendelea kudidimia kwa sababu unakuta sarafu ya dola iko juu na inadhibiti. Ulitangaza awali kwamba katika siku zichache zijazo dola itaonekana ikishuka chini, lakini imekuwa ikienda 50, 151, 153. Hivi Mheshimiwa Rais, ni mikakati ipi ambayo uko nayo kwa sasa ambayo itakuwa ni ya karibu sana kuhakikisha kwamba unadhibiti hii hali ambayo inaathiri uchumi kwa sasa? Bila shaka uchumi umepanda zaidi, gharama ya maisha iko juu, bei ya bidhaa muhimu ziko juu sana kwa sababu kiwango cha dola kiko juu na hakiwezi kudhibitika.
Asante sana Ali Manzu na ndugu wenzako ambao mmekuja kunitembelea. Kwanza nataka niseme nimefurahi sana kupata muda pamoja na nyinyi tuweze kujadili mambo ambayo ni ya muhimu kwa taifa letu la Kenya. And maybe just to answer you so that we are all on the same page. The issue of exchange rate is a factor of many aspects. As you know, I came into office when there was a lot of fluid activity in the space. We had a serious situation caused by COVID. We had a big war in Europe. We have a huge drought, climate change caused by climate change. And all those factors combined to create a situation globally that increased the price of commodities that we import, increased demand for the dollar. And in fact, what has happened is that the Fed, that is the Central Bank of the US, if you wish, has increased interest rates from 0.25 to 5.25. In fact, in the history of the Fed, this is the steepest interest rate increase in its history. What that has done, and because every country tried, including Kenya, every country tried to enhance liquidity because of the crisis, the COVID, so everybody tried to increase money in supply. In the process, we created a very serious situation of inflation. And when inflation ran away, in fact, for some countries, inflation has gone all the way to 40%, especially in our continent. Our inflation was almost double digit. It was 9 point something. So what the world has done, and which Kenya we are doing, is to manage inflation, to manage money supply. Because if you don't manage inflation, you run into a lot of problems. So what has the US done? They increased their interest rates. Mm-hmm. And because of the increase on interest rates, there was the demand for the dollar. People who had invested outside the US began to see an opportunity in the US. And so there was a lot of dollars leaving Kenya, leaving other countries, going to the US. What does that mean? It reduces the supply of dollars. And therefore, as compared to Kenya shillings, then the situation went up. Everybody expected that the US would ease on interest rates, on increasing their own interest rates. They didn't. That was the expectation of the whole globe. That's number one. Number two, in Kenya, we were maintaining an artificial exchange rate. You had the central bank governor, Mr. Thuge, say that this interest rate of this exchange rate of 130 that we were maintaining was artificial. I mean, it was maintained using our foreign exchange reserves. What happened? The government of Kenya spent $2.6 billion. That is almost 400 billion Kenya shillings in, supporting the Kenya shilling so that it doesn't go to its actual exchange rate.
How did they do that?
You sell dollars, Kenya reserves. You sell it to the market so that you increase supply of dollars at a price that is not the actual price, a subsidized price.
So this is the central bank. Central bank selling
of
to the
Kenya.
Market.
Yes, the central bank of
Where
Kenya.
are they getting it from? The dollar itself.
Our reserves. We have reserves.
Yes, the reserves as of that time were just over 4-point-something months. Mm-hmm.
Yes, that is exactly what happened. That's why those reserves came down to 3-point-something months.
Mr. President.
Today, and let me just finish. So because of that artificial support, when I came in, that is unsustainable. And it is partly why we have a crisis in our economy, because we were doing things that have no market support. So what I decided is we cannot, because it was anyway going to end up in a bigger crisis. So we stopped the artificial supply of dollars into the market. That's number one. We also, and that is why the rates went up. It is better for the rates to be up and they are not supported by artificial. We are not losing any foreign currency as a country. And what has happened is that imports to Kenya have gone down because our exports are now much more attractive. In fact, the people in the tea sector, the people in the coffee sector are earning much more than they were earning before. So what has happened is we are now keeping the exchange rate at a market rate, that we are not artificially supporting it.
Yes, Mr. President, we will get to...
And what will happen is, once the international economic space eases out, the dollars then, the exchange rate will then come down consistent with our own management.
Thank you. So in April last year, you did say that you will bring down, or the shilling will come down to about 115. This is an interview on accountability. That shilling has moved from 120.37. We are looking at 153.78 by Friday. And this is the central bank official rate. We also know that this is not the actual rate that actually Kenyans are spending when they go to buy the dollar. You promised that the government-to-government deal would fix this problem. Has it failed? And if so, what really happened?
Let me tell you, my brother, if I hadn't structured the G2G deal, the dollar today maybe would be at 250. That's how serious it would be. Why? Because the US Fed kept on increasing their interest rates. And you know very well that we can do the things we have done as Kenya, but we are also subject to the global economy. The G2G deal has worked. If we hadn't experienced an increase in the Fed, the dollar would be at 120 today. But because they kept on increasing the US exchange rate, our exchange rate, if we hadn't done the G2G transaction, if we were still going to the market to look for $500 million, 60 billion Kenyan shillings every month, and in fact, many banks, by the way, were waiting for the dollar to be at 200. Yeah, they will have to wait for a while because we have done things that nobody expected would be done, and we have managed to make sure that although things are not going the way we had planned, but they haven't gone overboard.
Mr. President, when did the US Fed begin raising the interest rates?
Maybe 2 years ago, immediately after the COVID situation. That is when they began to
Meaning
increase.
They were already doing this by the time of your election?
But they were not at 5.2.
No, I'm just asking.
Yeah, they had
in
begun.
terms of what was happening.
They had begun.
I asked that because in April this year, that's when the government-to-government deal started.
Correct.
And I remember your deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, saying that those people that have dollars in their houses, it is time to sell because you're just about to suffer loss.
Yes.
Yourself, you said that you see it going below 120.
Correct.
$115 even.
Correct.
So if you have all this information, why then promise something that was also bound to the changes in the global economy?
You see,
and now you're saying it could have gone up to 200. Which figure do we trust?
Let me tell you, my friend, we live in a global environment. And I know you're saying that because when we structured the G2G, many people keep saying, but this is what's happening in this country. This is what's happening in this country. Fuel today is at diesel 200 shillings, 201 in Kenya. It's exactly the same in our neighboring countries, Tanzania, Uganda. Many people think that fuel in Kenya is artificially managed by government of Kenya. It is not.
We'll come to that.
I'm just giving you as an example, because so that you understand where we are. And I want to say this without fear of any contradiction. If we had not tamed, already we were having stockouts here of fuel because of the lack of dollars. Because all these oil companies were running around. When I came into office, the first people I met were the oil companies. And they told me, look, we can't find the dollars. You know, although we are being told dollars is at 120 something, 130, we can't find it. You know, the dollars are not there because the rates were artificial. So we came to discover later, you know, that, oh, this dollar was being managed artificially. And that is how we realized that $2.6 billion of government money had been used, sold to banks to support an artificial exchange rate that was actually going to go the opposite direction. If we hadn't been managing the dollar exchange rate artificially, today we would be talking a different story.
Mr. President, you've been in office for 15 months, and you wouldn't want to go to what happened in the previous regimes, and that's why you are taking.
I am not talking about any previous regime. I'm just giving you the facts.
Artificially what you're talking about. Let us remain here, and we're looking at even the region in terms of the East African region. Look at even the Uganda shilling and the Tanzanian currencies. They aren't depreciating as fast as they are, as Kenya is doing. In fact, some of those currencies are actually appreciating as we speak today. They do not have a government-to-government deal, but they are somewhere. Most of them import from Kenya. The question is, what has been the problem with the government-to-government deal, and why has it not been able to fix the slide in the Kenya shilling?
You know, the government-to-government deal is not the only thing that will fix the exchange rate. It is one of the many things, right? We are a different economy from Uganda. We are a different economy from Tanzania, right? We have much more imports. We import much more for our industries because we are a different economy for all our other services than Uganda or Tanzania does. We are not in the same category economy-wise. We are a middle-income economy. They are in a different category, not like us. So you cannot compare them and us. Then you are not comparing the same stuff. And I don't want us to talk about other countries because then I don't want us to say which country is better than which one.
Then, Mr. President, let's talk solutions.
Yes.
Because this basically drives almost everything, right, in the country. So the question would be what you are doing to strengthen the Kenya shilling.
Precisely. That now you're talking. 3 things. Number 1, you have heard me clearly. In the last budget, I said there are things we are importing today which we should not be importing. We shouldn't be importing cement. We shouldn't be importing steel. We shouldn't be importing furniture. There are many things we are spending huge amounts of money to import when we can manufacture them locally. That is the reason why we have put a levy on the import of these unnecessary imports of products into Kenya so that we can stem the export of our foreign currency and manufacture those items locally. Number 2, we are importing 500 billion Kenya shillings every year of food items. 500 billion. From edible oil to maize to rice to all those. 500 billion US dollars we are importing. Uganda does not import that much food. Tanzania does not import that much food. We are the only country that imports that much food. Why? Because we haven't paid as much attention to agriculture. And number 2, we need to understand that while Uganda 80% is arable with rain, Kenya only 15% is arable with rain. Tanzania is a completely different story. Almost 60% of their land has rain and is arable. Ours only 15%. That's why we are importing $500 million of food into Kenya. So what we need to do, we need to pay attention to our agriculture. The reason why we have invested, and that is why in the manifesto that I sold to the people of Kenya, agriculture, modernization, mechanization is one of the big tickets that I decided that I'm going to do. We have change the trajectory on our staple food. Today, we are producing more in terms of maize, which is our staple food. In fact, my plan is that by next year, we shouldn't be importing maize into Kenya. We should be produced enough. This year, we have increased our production of maize by 40%, more than we did last year. Last year, we produced 44 million bags. We are producing 61 million bags this year. And it is because we have done interventions. Fertilizer that was being sold at 7,000, we are now selling at 2,500 because we are supporting production. We are full scale into the space of edible oil that we are importing. I am working with different governors. This year, we are working on sunflower, we are working on soya, we are working on palm oil. The president of Indonesia was here. We have agreed on a whole chain because they are the biggest country that we import edible oil from. They are going to work with us to grow palm oil in Kenya. That project is being led by county governments. In fact, it is being led by Gladys Wanga, the county governor of Homa Bay, because it is in the coastal region and around Lake Victoria that we will have the biggest space and the biggest opportunity for us to produce palm oil. We are going to do more around sunflower. We are going to do more so that we also stem the tide of loss of dollars into other jurisdictions because of food imports. So these are the things that I am doing. Number three, I am also looking at how are we going to get more foreign exchange into Kenya. That is why I am working round the clock to make sure that we have more Kenyans working in Kenya, in foreign companies when they are in Kenya, and we are also connecting Kenyans to opportunities outside Kenya. For your information, just so that I conclude, I made a commitment in our plan that we want to increase foreign remittances coming into Kenya, hard currency that comes into Kenya from foreign remittance from $4 billion to $10 billion. It is the reason why we just concluded a diaspora investment conference here in KICC this week. It is the reason why I have signed a bilateral agreement, labor agreement with Saudi, with UAE, with Germany, with Canada, and many other countries. We are exploring possibilities. And for your information, as a result of those, what I have been doing, between now and next month, January, the first 10,000 Kenyans will be leaving to go and work in foreign countries so that they can support themselves and support Kenya, because many countries have established a strategy on how to grow their foreign exchange earnings.
On
the other hand, maybe still on the government-to-government deals, is it giving us as a nation the desired results?
Absolutely.
8 months down the line?
Absolutely. In fact, that same government product or program, many countries are seeking to know how they can copy that program, because it is giving us what we couldn't have gotten in a different way.
Then how can we control the prices now? You see, fuel, it's been up and down. Right now we're talking of 210, 212 per liter.
Ali Manzu.
Yes.
You heard me say this. The price of fuel is not determined by the government of Kenya. It is not determined by any company. It is determined by the producers. That is why today the price of fuel in Kenya is the same price in Uganda, is the same price in Tanzania, because we buy from the same place.
Mheshimiwa Rais, tutakuja kwa hilo baadaye.
I have heard people say the president should reduce the price to 150.
Tutarudi kwa hilo baadaye, Mheshimiwa Rais.
How are you going to do that? Unless I take taxpayers' money and go and subsidize, which is removing money from this pocket and putting it in this other pocket.
Mheshimiwa Rais,
unaposema kwamba bei ya mafuta serikali haina uwezo mkubwa kuhusiana na bei ya mafuta. Itakumbuka kwamba wakati wa kampeni kabla hujawa rais, ulisema kwamba bei ya mafuta wakati huo, wakati wa utawala wa rais mstaafu Uhuru Kenyatta, ilisababishwa na wale ambao waliwaita cartels, na zaidi ukaeleza kuhusiana na ushuru mwingi. Nini kilibadilika?
Hakuna kitu kimebadilika. Mambo ya ushuru, nimepunguza ushuru kwa mafuta, nimepunguza ushuru ya road development levy, nimepunguza ushuru ya railway development levy na ilikuwa kwa budget. Tumepunguza ushuru mara 4 in 4 different categories. But you see, that is not sufficient to reduce the price because the price of oil itself is going up because of the producers.
Ni sawa kusema kwamba changamoto za kimataifa zinaathiri bei ya mataifa nchini.
You see, changamoto za kimataifa na bei ya fuel ya kimataifa imechangia. Amesema huyu mrembo kwamba tumeongeza bei ya VAT. Ni kweli, tumeongeza bei ya VAT, lakini tumepunguza ushuru zingine. Tunaongeza bei ya VAT kwa sababu gani? Kenya tuko katika kiwango inaitwa middle income economy. We are in the same category as South Africa. We are in the same category as Morocco. We are in the same category as Tunisia. I want you to check their taxes, because our taxes are now at 15.6% of GDP. 15.6% of GDP. Taxes in South Africa is 27% of GDP. Taxes in Morocco is 32% of GDP. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to answer the question because, the people of Kenya are being pushed and being told, look, you are paying more taxes than other countries. Is that true? That is not true.
Now, Mheshimiwa Rais,
we are paying the same taxes like all countries that are in our same category. And let me tell you the difference so that you can take the chance. Let me tell you the category. If we go to the market, the countries that are in LDCs, they get a lower interest rate than those of us who are in middle income. So you cannot compare them and us. We are in a different category. And for your information, countries like France, their tax as a percentage of GDP is 45%. We are only at 15.6%. That's the difference.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, bado tuko kwa hili swala la shilingi na dola. Umezungumzia miradi tofauti hapa ambayo mmeweka katika mpango wa kuweza kupunguza hiyo dola ambayo shilingi iweze kuwa na thamani. Swala la mahindi umesema by mwaka ujao Aprili hapo pengine swala la mahindi tutapunguza kuimport na mambo kama hayo. Ukatajwa masuala kuhusu pia edible oil na miradi ambayo ipo. Lakini Mkenya pale nje anajiuliza watasubiri hadi lini hii shilingi iweze kupata thamani yake ili maisha yaweze kuwa sawa?
Wakenya watazubiri kwa sababu dola sio serikali ya Kenya inaamua. Dola ni biashara, ni kati ya zile vitu tunauza na vile tunanunua. Ndio tunapata ile uwezo wa kudhibiti. Kwa sasa kuna vitu nyingi tunaagiza kutoka nje. Na ndio nimesema ili kupunguza vitu ambazo tunaagiza kutoka nje, lazima tuanze kuzitengeneza hapa Kenya. Simiti, nimesema ya kwamba na tumeweka katika budget ya mwaka huu ya kwamba simiti itakuwa inatengenezwa Kenya. Kwa sababu tuko na kampuni, tutapanua kampuni ambazo tuko nazo, ndio tuweze kuokoa dola ambazo tunatumia kuagiza simiti. Chuma tutaanza kutengeneza Kenya. Tayari tuko na kampuni ya kutosha kutengeneza Kenya. Furniture tutatengeneza Kenya.
Kwa hivyo,
chakula tutazalisha Kenya. Ndio tuweze kupunguza ile dola ambazo pesa ambazo tunatumia ya kigeni kuagiza vitu ambazo zinakuja Kenya ndio tuweze kuwa kumanage ile exchange rate.
Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Rais, hadi hapo Mkenya ataendelea kukandamizika? Hadi
hapo, unajua sasa hakuna miujiza itafanyika. Unajua sasa wewe unataka kufanya miracles.
I think, Mr. President,
hakuna miracle. You know, this is what is happening globally.
Mr. President,
we live in a global economy and we need to understand. And it is very important for us sitting here to tell the people of Kenya that, because you know, many people are saying the price of fuel. I want to tell the people of Kenya, the price of fuel is not controlled by the government of Kenya. That's why I was saying yesterday, many people are praising me that, oh, you see, we have now begun to see the prices of fuel coming down. I told them, no, musinisifu, I have not, hakuna kitu nimefanya, ni wale wanatuuzia wameanza kupunguza bei. Na mimi nataka niwaeleze wa Kenya, bei ya mafuta hapa Kenya ni sawasawa na bei ya mafuta.
Mr. President, we'll get to fuel. We'll get to fuel. We shall get to that, Mr. President. But I want to ask something my colleague Sam asked earlier. So did you promise what you couldn't deliver?
I promised in the context of where we are. If things had stayed constant, I would have kept my promise. But you know, we live in a situation that things are changing. The world, we live in a global environment, that the prices are going up. You cannot keep unless, and I don't want to lie to the people of Kenya and say, let me spend public money so that I look like I am keeping my promise and I am doing the wrong thing. It is better for me to be brutally honest and say, this is not possible. We may have made a commitment, but because the situation changed and everybody knows what that situation is today, the prices of commodities went up. You heard Uhuru Kenyatta say he was not the one who started the war in Ukraine, you know, and all the other things. But that is okay.
Mr. President,
what we must be honest to ourselves is, are we doing the best to manage the situation so that doesn't flip and go in the wrong direction? And I want to tell you, yes.
Mr. President, I thank you for that response. And to be brutally honest, just to pick up from where you are sitting, I think Kenyans know that it's actually true that government has a big role to play in terms of the fuel prices. It's not true that government doesn't play, because 40% of the taxes, between 40 to 45% of the fuel price in Kenya is actually government taxes. So government has a big role to play on that. I think we need to move to energy now that we are as energy.
Just before that, Paul, Mr. President, I hear you, and I've listened to you carefully saying that if things had remained constant, and I was hoping that you'd explain what is that constant, because you also say
if the U.S. dollar had not been, the exchange rate was not, if the U.S. interest rate was not increased.
It was increasing already.
It was increasing, but you know, it has reached a place where everybody thought it was going to stop. But the next 3-4 increases were completely unexpected. Even today, all of us expected that they would begin to come down, but they've decided to keep it.
Okay, and Mr. President...
and you see, while my good brother here said the government has a lot of say on taxes.
Yeah.
You see, my friend, while it is true that I can tomorrow say, let us reduce the taxes, it is also true that tomorrow, for every 10 shillings I collect, every 10 shillings, 7 shillings go to paying debt. Are you telling me that you want me to do what other countries have done, to default on debt? Because that's the only option I have. I can say, okay, let us pay less, and then let's tell the international community, Kenya cannot service debt. Is that what you want us to do? That would be very...
And Mr. President, that's what I was asking you.
So precisely, you cannot say, it is simplistic for you to say, yes, the government can, 40% of fuel is taxes. The government can decide tomorrow to lower the taxes. But you know, those taxes we are collecting, we have education to fund. First, we have 7 shillings for every 10 to pay debt, which William Ruto did not accumulate, right? Number 2, the 3 other shillings, we have to pay our children to go to school. We have to manage our security. We have to manage our health. We have to manage everything else. We have to pay our teachers. So are you telling me I go and tell teachers, I don't have salary for you this month because I have to reduce the price of fuel? Do you think that would be reasonable?
Maybe just, Mr. President, on that issue, just hold on to that thought a bit, because if you look at the prices of fuel, what has happened is that we are looking at consumption. If I look at the last data, the last 3 months data, consumption of fuel has actually dropped to a 5-year low. And if you look at even KRA, the collection, they missed the target. They were off the ordinary revenue by about 31 billion Kenya shillings. So what is happening is, yes, on this end, you have a plan to collect taxes, but these taxes are not coming through to Kenya Revenue Authority. And on the other end, you are killing the economy because you have people not moving, consumption, because oil and electricity basically will tell you what is happening in the economy.
For your information, your figures are wrong, because if you look at the taxes that have been collected from fuel, they've gone up. That's the correct position. So the other taxes are the ones that they have not met the targets. And why haven't they met the targets? Because I gave them a very high target.
Mr. President,
because I wanted them to do much more than they are doing.
Mr. President, let's just take a look at the data.
So don't misrepresent facts.
Let's talk about
the correct position.
The data you have from the Kenya Revenue Authority, because they're the ones who collect the revenue in their report. In the first quarter, ended September 2023, the oil taxes, the target was 84.6 billion shillings. They collected 77.7 billion shillings. Similar period last year, it was 78.5 billion shillings. That's a drop of about 800 million shillings. So indeed, for quarter one, there has been a reduction. If you're to speak about the volumes, the same quarter, diesel in 2022, quarter one, it was 1.15 metric tons, 1.5 million metric tons. This time round, the same quarter, it is 1.05 metric tons, a reduction of 56,000 metric tons. For petrol, 770,000 for quarter one 2022. Quarter one this year, it is 742,000, a reduction of 28,000 metric tons. So there has been a reduction. The difference comes in because the taxes are higher, more expensive than it was last year.
That is not the correct position, my friend.
Those are figures from KRA.
Let me explain to you.
Okay.
We import fuel for Kenya, but 40% of that fuel goes to Uganda, Rwanda, and sometimes all the way to DRC. With the eastern DRC get fuel from Kenya, right? So when you look at the figures, you must know that there is a component of fuel that is not sold in Kenya, that is sold outside Kenya. That you must
KRA reports about the revenue, isn't it?
That's what you must know first,
yeah.
Right? So when you are looking at the quantities and the numbers, you need to factor that into the equation, all right? And secondly, we are beginning to look at other alternatives. A lot more people now we've connected to electricity, people who are using diesel. In fact, this year, most of our thermal energy electricity generation has gone down. Why? Because we have moved the number of Kenyans on electricity from 2.3 in 2013 to now 9.4. So we have more Kenyans who are not using diesel. We have more companies. We have more infrastructure who are using diesel that now we have connected to electricity. That explains some of the reduction. If you look at
but this is a direct consequence from the Finance Act of 2023.
That's not the correct position. I am telling you
KRA is reporting,
more
Mr.
and more.
President.
Exactly. So why I'm telling you, the quantities that have gone down is because more people are not using diesel, especially in the big companies, if you look at what we are saying, because we have made it possible for them to use electricity. We have reduced, in certain cases, electricity for industrial power. so that instead of them powering their mechanism using diesel, they are now using electricity that we are generating. And it is partly why we have connected more people to electricity.
Je, Mheshimiwa Rais, tukisalia tu kwa swala la bei ya mafuta. Dio. Na hii project ama tunaweza sema hii G2G deal ama mpango wa G2G deal. Correct. Azma yake ilikuwa ni kupunguza hata bei ya mafuta. Je, did we achieve the required results?
Wewe ndio umesema azma yake ni kupunguza bei. Azma yake ilikuwa ni kuhakikisha kwamba number one, we have fuel. Because when I came into office, people were queuing in petrol stations for fuel. True? That was the case. Now, nobody is queuing in any petrol station. We have continuous supply. Number two, half the companies in Kenya, fuel companies, had closed down. Today, no company is operating outside the net. Every company has fuel. Number three, local companies were buying fuel in US dollars. Today, they are buying it in Kenya shillings. If you asked any Kenyan company that is selling fuel, our oil marketers across Kenya, they are very happy with the deal we structured. And number three, we have removed pressure on the US dollars. In fact, when I came into office, there are many companies who are considering relocating from Kenya. Why? Because if you can't have foreign currency to pay your dividends for companies that are not Kenyan, there was a backlog of almost 8 months of companies that had not paid dividends for their investors because there was no dollars in the market. Today, I have made sure that though the dollar is high, but it is available.
Mheshimiwa Rais, katika sikukuu ya Jamhuri ulisema kwamba uchumi wa taifa umeimarika.
Kabisa.
Siku chache kabla ya hotuba yako, Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua alikuwa amesema huenda ikachukua muda hata wa takriban miaka 10 hivi katika kushughulikia masuala muhimu ya wananchi. Wakati fulani Waziri wa Fedha Henry Rotich akasema kwamba
hapana.
Waziri wa Fedha Njuguna Ndung'u akasema kwamba hali ni ngumu kwa taifa, hasa kulipa mishahara na masuala mengine ambayo yanahusiana na fedha. Hali ya uchumi iko vipi Mheshimiwa Rais?
Na tukisalia hapo, Prime CS Musalia Mudavadi amesema 3 years. You know, to quote him verbatim, he's forecasting a difficult 2 to 3 years, asking Kenyans to bear the burden. So just like Kitu here is asking, during your manifesto launch, Mr. President, you called it the plan. Is there a plan for economic recovery? Because you are saying this, your deputy is saying another thing, Treasury CS, a different thing, Prime Cabinet Secretary. I mean, this should be one government that speaks in one voice. And Kenyans themselves, Mr. President, wanaumia.
Wakenya wanasikiza pia, huyu anasema hivi, huyu anasema hivi.
Tuliza boli.
Tumelituliza. Nani anasema kweli?
Sikizeni. Nimesema hivi, nataka kuwajibu nyinyi wote watatu. Mimi nimesema, if you read my statement, I said our economy today is out of debt distress. And that is the truth. For your information, if I didn't step in, let me even say, if I wasn't president, the kind of decisions I have made, very difficult decisions, you know, very painful decisions. Decisions that I know they will cause pain, but it is better we make those decisions now than get Kenya into debt distress. There are almost 8 countries in our continent, including one that went into debt distress. I don't want to mention countries, you know them, last almost 3 weeks or 1 month. That is the worst thing that can happen to any country, to go into debt distress. We are now out of debt distress. Our economy is stable, but the difficult patch is still there. We still have to navigate. All we have done is to avoid the cliff, right? That we have avoided because we have negotiated, we have put brakes on expenditure. We have negotiated a good package with the World Bank, with IMF, with development partners, with bilateral countries, China, Europe, and everywhere. And that's why I have been on the road so many times. People ask, what is he doing? it was necessary for me to step in and stabilize so that Kenya does not go into debt distress. Let me tell you what Ndungu was saying. Ndungu was in parliament.
That's actually where I was headed. He says the government is broke.
Ndungu was in parliament. And he was being pushed. Oh, you need to do this more. Ndungu was telling them, look, we don't have the kind of money you're talking about. We don't have money to increase this and to increase this and to increase this. That is the correct position. We have, and that is why we are cutting back on many aspects, because this is what is required at this point in time. It is the difficult decisions we have to make now so that tomorrow looks better.
Mheshimiwa Rais, ufafanuzi wako wa uchumi kuimarika ni nini wakati ambapo Wakenya wengi wanalalamikia gharama ya maisha?
And you see, what Musalia is saying is for us to be able to get to a place where we can say we are good, you know, that things are moving, there is money in the pocket, we can feed ourselves, we can do everything. It takes time, right?
How long?
And it takes time because
how long, Mr. President?
You want me to say 3 months, 5 months, 1 year?
No, you're quoting your Kameme secretary who says 2 to 3 years.
Relax. Yeah. Because we are not in charge of all the factors that will finally determine where we are going, let us give ourselves time. But I want to promise the people of Kenya that we will sort this situation out.
Mheshimiwa Rais, unaposema uchumi umeimarika, ufafanuzi wako wa uchumi kuimarika ni nini, hasa wakati ambapo Wakenya wanalalamikia gharama ya maisha?
Number one, na ni vizuri umeuliza gharama ya maisha. Gharama ya maisha inachangiwa na vitu vitatu. Ya kwanza ni gharama ya chakula, right? Na nikisema uchumi iko na uchumi ya tumbo. Nataka nikuulize na Wakenya wenzangu, tumefanya lolote kupunguza gharama ya chakula? Yes, we have done major steps. The price of food items is today lower than it was a year ago. It is a fact. Lakini, of course, it's not convenient for certain people to accept. That's number one. Number two, globally, where is Kenya? Uchumi wa numbers, and these are not my figures. We've brought down inflation from 9 point something to now 6.8. Those are figures, global figures of the World Bank. Number two, our economy is growing at 5.4%. Not my figures, World Bank figures, right? In fact, they quote Kenya is the 29th fastest growing economy globally. Those are figures out there. Of course, many people don't want to accept. I know that there is still no money in people's pockets. Uchumi wa mfuko
bado
ndio bado. Yeah?
Utakuwa lini?
Are we doing something about it? Yes. That is why we are spending more money in education. Yeah? We are putting more money in education. In fact, this year we are putting an extra 120 billion in education. To do what? To make sure that we reduce outlay by Kenyans to fund education. Number two, we are putting more money in health. That is why we've passed 4 laws. What do we want to do? We want to make sure every ordinary citizen has a health insurance. Those who are paying 500 will come down to 300. We are going to make sure that we don't leave nobody behind. That is why I am going out of my way to create jobs. Today, as I talk to you, because you need to put money in people's pockets. Today, as I talk to you, 120,000 people are working in our housing program. Today, as I talk to you, we are working on export of labor, making sure that we connect Kenyans to jobs abroad. Today, as I talk to you, we are expanding the space of digital jobs. We just passed the law so that we can create ICT hubs across Kenya. I have already negotiated for digital jobs globally. Kenyans are very good at it. We are going to spread opportunities so that people can put money in their pockets. So that's why I'm saying we need a plan. You know, it is easy to say, let us do quick fixes. We have been doing quick fixes for a long time, and we haven't gotten it right. Many people wanted me to do a quick fix by subsidizing unga. I told them, let us not subsidize unga. Let us promote production. We will eventually get the right results better.
Mheshimiwa Rais, awali kulikuwa na mazingira mazuri pengine ya kufanyia biashara. Tunavyoona sasa, sijui kama palikoseka wapi, pengine unaweza kutueleza, manake kulikuwa na mazingira mazuri ya kufanya biashara. Kuna takwimu ambazo zimetolewa hata na FKE nadhani wakisema kwamba kuna makampuni ama kuna Wakenya takriban 70,000 ambao wameachishwa kazi. Katika serikali yako Mheshimiwa, palikoseka nini haswa pale mpaka mazingira ya kufanya kazi yakawa magumu kiasi cha kwamba 84% ya Wakenya wanasema kwamba maisha ni magumu, na hizi ni takwimu ambazo ziko zaidi ya 50 kwa mara ya kwanza katika Mkenya kusema kwamba maisha ni magumu na pesa haionekani.
Na tukisalia hapo Mr. President, because it's just based on what she said, are you aware that 87% of Kenyans, your people, Mr. President, that is 9 out of 10, have opted to reduce on personal expenditure because of the current economy? Watu wana opt kutokula, which is what we're talking about, uchumi ya tumbo. They are foregoing food because of the current situation.
Good. I want you to read a clip or even a text. It was in the Standard. 10 months after Kibaki became president, the same number of Kenyans said NAC and President Kibaki had made their life worse than ever because Kibaki decided to make the right decisions, not popular decisions, right? 10 months after he was president. We are in the same space. But let me tell you the following, that it is true. We are facing a difficult situation. We are facing a difficult situation because that is the global situation. But are we doing something about it? Yes, we're doing something about it. Is it bearing results? Yes, it's bearing results. The price of food is coming down because of our intervention, by God's grace. The global economy is appreciating what Kenya is doing. Let me go to FKE. FKE said 70,000 Kenyans have lost jobs or have gotten out of jobs. Part of those 70,000 Kenyans, for your information, are teachers who are working in private schools, who we have hired as government. Now they are teaching in, we have hired 56,000 teachers as teachers. We have hired an additional 120,000 people working in our housing program. We have a plan to make sure that we keep increasing. We have only 31 sites of our housing program. We have another 34 that will be rolled out the first quarter of next year. By the end of next year, we will have between 200 and 250,000 Kenyans working. So the economy is adjusting towards where we want to go. We do not want to be an export destination for others. We also want to produce what we should be producing. And that is why we are working on the difficult patch for now so that we can stabilize the future.
Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Rais, unakubali kwamba Wakenya 70,000 kweli walifutwa kazi ama walikosa kazi?
Sikubali, wao ndio wamesema. Mimi nimekuambia.
Na wakaandikwa na serikali. Kumaanisha ni makampuni yaliyo humu pengine yalifunga wakatoka ndo wakaja wakaandikwa na serikali, ama hawa walikuwa ni wa kutoka?
Waacha sasa nikwambie, wale wamesema, yale wamesema. What I have told you is what I can vouch. Have I hired 56,000 teachers? Yes. Are there 120,000 people working in our housing program? Yes. So as to what on FKE side, you need to verify the figures.
Mr. President, Sam, just 1 second. You have talked about pain and that Kenyans need to, appreciate the pain and the process like President Kibaki did. And State House and where you sit, you set the tone for whatever government agencies and officers below you do.
That's correct.
And you are asking Kenyans to be patient You're asking Kenyans to tighten their belt. But if you look at your administration and State House, to be specific, and other officials, you look at foreign travel has been up 26% just this ending quarter to 1.1 billion. And Kenyans are feeling quite taxed. And the hustlers that you represent are looking around the numbers that we are discussing today, and they're wondering, where have we missed this? Because on one end, you're asking Kenyans to be, to bear with government, to tighten their belts. The Treasury is saying things are bad. You're saying you're preventing us from, going off the cliff. But on the other end, the extravagance in government is really still heavy. How do you reconcile these two situations?
I will answer you this way. Go and look at the budget. We have cut by 50% the budget for travel and entertainment. 50%, right? In the supplementary budget, just go and check the figures. That is about 11 billion shillings that we have reduced. Have I traveled more than the former presidents? Yes. And I have traveled not as a tourist. I have traveled to sort out the matters of Kenya. If I didn't package what I have packaged to salvage our country from going over the cliff, we'd be talking a different story. Would you rather I sit in Nairobi and see Kenya go down, or would you rather I go to America, and America has really supported us in making sure that we structure a deal with World Bank and IMF? Would I travel to China to make sure that we structure the bilateral deal that will see all our roads come back? Would you rather I don't travel, or I travel to South Korea to sort out the problem you see in our electricity space? That we now have money to do what the investment we have not done in the last 10 years in our energy transmission. The reason why you find the blackouts, and is the challenge we have with our transmission infrastructure. And I have found resources to now sort that out. So would you rather I sit here, or I look for the bilateral agreements that will give Kenyans an opportunity to work abroad and to work at home on digital jobs? This is what a president is supposed to do. And I can account for every shilling that I have spent on my travel. And let me say this. On the budget of State House, there were so many things around the State House, including the famous NMS. Part of the money that was being allocated to State House was to pay contracts, NMS contracts, and many other things, which I have said must stop. And because I want to lead the way in making sure that we manage what eventually is destroying our country, called bending bills. And for your information, we have 506 billion of pending bills. I need to lead the way. That's why I instructed staff in State House that State House must be the first one to clear pending bills. Most of the monies that have come here is to sort out NMS and all the other people that were here. And I have said those infrastructure should be transferred to the parent ministries. State House must deal with State House matters.
Mr. President, we've spoken about three issues. We've spoken about the Kenya shilling and how it's behaving against the major currencies, global currencies. We've spoken a bit of energy and what is happening in the field sector. We also touched on cost of living. We have so much to cover tonight, and I just seek your indulgence that we can be first in our responses, but also the questions. That question that you say we were on a cliff, debt cliff, and now we are no longer there. Recently, you posted on your X account, and you said that the World Bank is giving us 2 trillion shillings for the next 3 years. The IMF is giving us over 680 billion shillings. That, in total, is about 2.6 trillion shillings, based on the current exchange rate. Now, part of the reason why our debt is beyond the ceiling that was of 10 trillion shillings by June next year is because of what has happened to the US dollar. If you add what you've gotten from the two global institutions, it takes us to close to 13 trillion shillings already in the next few years. Why then have a debt anchor of 55% to the GDP, which are already busting?
For your information, and it's a very good question you've asked, most of that money we have negotiated will actually replace. We are getting money at 2-3%. We are replacing it with money we are paying 15-16%. And the killer on our debt is the interest, the amounts of interest we are paying. It's not even the principal that is a big problem. It is the amount of interest we are paying. Because if you are paying interest at 16, I think the euro went to 20% at some point, that is what is destroying our economy. So we are not necessarily increasing the debt portfolio. We are substituting debt that is expensive just so that it is manageable, and then it can give us the space to be able to grow our economy. That is the context. Mm-hmm. So what the international community have supported me to do is to replace the Eurobond, which is $2 billion. Yeah, $2 billion of very expensive money at 20%, with money that we can manage at 2-3%. That is the difference. And by just doing that, we will save on the 7 shillings we are paying for every 10 we collect to pay debt. That will significantly come down. So that's what I am doing, because that is what is feasible as we talk, as I embark on growing the economy. And growing the economy is investing in the right place, making sure that our agricultural production is up to the scale. It is the reason why I am improving the whole agriculture chain. I'm building 400 markets. I promised Mama Mboga that they will do a business in a good place. Building 400 markets. I am building 47 county aggregation and industrial parks to add value, to process, so that we get more value from our production. And if you saw this, this is when is today? Sunday. If you saw last week, we just advertised for the infrastructure of our 6 special economic zones. Again, these will become engines of exports, because we have to grow our exports. We need to stem imports into Kenya, but we need to increase more exports so that we can get more revenue, grow jobs locally. And you see, my focus is to make sure that we expand the space of people who are working. And it is going to be deliberate. It's going to be difficult, but it must be deliberate. That is why housing is one plank where we're going to create jobs. Agriculture is another space. In the special economic zones and the exports and that space, we're going to grow jobs. The digital space, which I have negotiated with Facebook, I've negotiated with Meta, for us to have digital jobs in Kenya. You already know that the number of people who are working in the digital space, and we are going to export more labor. As I talk to you here, there are people being trained in NYS today for people who are on the space of export of labor, because we have to have interventions. We have to have. I mean, it is different. They are nurses. There are adverts that the Ministry of Labor goes out to look for them.
Mheshimiwa Rais, kuhusiana na ada ya nyumba umeitaja, unafahamu kwamba kuna Wakenya wengi bado hawajaridhia, licha ya kwamba kuna agizo kutoka mahakamani, na nakumbuka juzi ukiwa kwenye mkutano wa diaspora pia ulisisitiza ukasema kwamba housing levy lazima itekelezwe na kadhalika. Hebu tuelezee, kuna mabadiliko yoyote baada ya mahakama kutoa agizo lake na wewe kuendelea kusukuma kwamba ni sharti Mkenya atozwe hii ada ya nyumba?
Mahakama walisema hivi. Mahakama walisema hii ada ni sawa kama Wakenya wote watalipa. Right? That's what they said. They said It should not be discriminatory.
Mr. President, they didn't say that.
Kuna mkakati
they said it is as it is discriminatory. And therefore unconstitutional.
No,
you interpret it.
The problem of unconstitutional was made by the media.
No, they said it's null and void.
So if it is unconstitutional, why did the court say we should continue to collect?
Because there's an application for stay orders.
How do we continue? No, how do we continue to do unconstitutionality?
No, Mr. President, at least we can agree on what the court said.
Yes.
And the court said that we've looked at everything and we arrive at the decision that this is discriminatory. Because of that, it doesn't agree with the constitutional Article 10 on governance. And therefore it is null and void.
No.
Kingine ambacho labda Mheshimiwa Rais nikuongezee, ilisema mahakama pia ilisema kwamba hakuna mkakati maalum kupitia KRA jinsi fedha hizi zitakusanywa.
Absolutely. Now that is what they told us to fix. And that is why we now have a law in Parliament. What the court said there are institutions that are not paying. There are groups that are not paying, that are not paying in the current setup. And we have said we are expanding the net of the payers. It will give us actually more money so that we can do more houses, which is a very positive thing that the court has done. And they have said, establish a mechanism how this money will be used. We have put a mechanism in law how it's going to be used. Let me tell you, good people, we can argue about this or that or the other. My question is, do we have a problem of housing in Kenya? Yes. Do we have a problem of jobs in Kenya? Yes. Can we sort out? Because, it is one thing to argue, even if you are a judge. And I am sure that is what went through their minds. Because the judges are also Kenyans. They know we have millions of young people out there who are jobless. A story was carried, for example, in one of the media houses here. I think I saw it on KTN, saying the crime rate in Ruiru has gone down because there are many people working in the housing program in Ruiru. I did not make the story. It was in KTN. And that is the truth. So even as you sit as a judge, even as you ask me a question as a journalist, we are discussing housing. Housing is an opportunity to do three major things. Number one, to create jobs. Is it a good thing for us to create jobs? These are not the children of William Ruto. These are the children of all Kenyans that will work. They will work as architects, they will work as engineers, they will work as carpenters, they will work as masons, they will work in whatever field. Some of them will be working in factories that are creating steel. Some of them will work in factories that are making for us cement to do the houses. Is it a good job? Is it a good thing? Do we have a problem of unemployment in Kenya? Yes. We need to sort it out. It has to be sorted out somehow. Number two, do we have a problem of industrialization? Do we have a problem of manufacturing? Yes. How do we create more manufacturing jobs, if not through programs like housing? How do we reduce the problem of land fragmentation, where land that is supposed to be used for agricultural productivity is now being subdivided for people to live? If we provide alternative housing, we will save the land that is going to settlement. We will use it to produce food so that we stop the slide into food insecurity, and we begin to tame the problem of high prices of food.
Mr. President,
these are obvious, and that is why I am very confident that the court will look at what is the public interest, what is the public good that comes with housing. Let me ask finally, to own a house in Kenya today, you need to have 4 million, 5 million, the simplest, the cheapest house. We are giving an opportunity through this affordable housing program for a mama mboga or a boda boda guy to buy a house of 400,000 where they can pay 4,000 shillings a month and eventually own a house. I mean, we are giving dignity to every Kenyan. And let me tell you, finally, housing was a program that was in the UDA manifesto, the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, 1.5%. It was in Azimio manifesto, 1.5%. Yeah, and we all know that it is the right thing to do. because other countries have done it and they have made a big difference. We have had this housing thing for as long as I have been a politician, but nobody has had the courage to implement it. Nobody has had the plan to do it.
Have you stopped to wonder or ask what the people think, what their sentiments are about this? Because times are tough, Mr. President.
Put in mind, 70% are saying no to this program.
Just wait. I want you to go to where these Kenyans are working. Go and ask them. Go and ask them. The beneficiaries, the people who are working today, they are not even the owners. They are just working. Go and ask them. And you see, this is the beginning of a program. Give it time. Kenyans will come to appreciate that, yes, my son is working, my daughter is working. If they are not working at the construction site, they are an architect, or they work in some company, they are an accountant in some company that is doing cement and construction products. And let me ask you, countries like Singapore, like Malaysia, like Korea, we all have been talking about them. We've been saying, oh, you know, we were at the same level with Korea, but today they are different from us. They made tough decisions. That's why they are where they are. We have to make tough decisions if we have to catch up. I mean, if we want to continue to make convenient, you know, politically correct decisions, we will continue to remain in the same place. And I know, for example, that it is politically expensive. You know, I would be a very popular person if I abolished tomorrow. I said, okay, let's forget about the housing thing. People will clap for
Mr. President, I don't think there's anyone saying that you should stop it.
I don't want to be...
And Mr. President, if you remember, Mr. President...
I want to transform Kenya.
Yes, if you remember...
Transforming Kenya is not a walk in the park. Transforming Kenya is not going to be done using convenient, politically correct, popular decisions. Some of the decisions may be difficult now, but we will all see the benefits as we go.
No doubt about that, Mr. President.
It is the wrong time. We've had housing as a plan for the last 50 years. Are you telling me for the last 50 years there was no correct time? It is never too late. It is never wrong to do the right thing.
Mr. President, just let's stay to the housing fund. Because when it started and you were walking around the country and selling this dream to many Kenyans, you told us this was a fund and we will contribute. And if you didn't want the house or didn't benefit, at the end of the day, you would get your money out at some point. Then overnight, in Parliament, it turned into a levy and a tax. What really changed and what caused you to move from a fund, which was really, really contributory, to this discriminatory fund that even the court has found to be? And does this mean that this plan changed overnight, or what really happened to cause you to make these changes? And just to stay on that point, was it necessary that we would start all these funds together in terms of, was it a must that you start the housing fund? You are here fighting the fire of housing. Again, you start the health crisis. Before this is done, even it's off, you are dealing with the taxation, And because of that, nearly every government agency is now waking up with taxes. So you find, levies going up by 3,900%. You find even pets now they're going to be taxed. And Kenyans are wondering, what has happened? Do you feel that you're out of touch with the people that you lead? Because then it will explain some of the decisions that you're doing.
Thank you very much for asking that question. Let's start with the levy. I proposed a fund. Yeah? There is a principle in Kenya today called public participation. It went to public participation. And Parliament when coming from public participation, came and said it should instead be a levy, right? And as president, if the people said they wanted this changed into a different way of doing it, I agreed that, okay, let's go this way. But what did I do to make sure that it captures everybody? We changed the design of the whole delivery of the housing so that now we have social housing for the people at the bottom of the pyramid. We'll pay 4,000 or 5,000 shillings and get a house. We have affordable housing for people in the middle who will pay between 5,000 and 15,000 every month. But we have also included 30% of all the units to include the people who largely are the contributors. You know, the people who are the biggest contributors, the people in the middle class, who will pay now between 15,000 and 30,000. So we have made everybody a beneficiary, you know, in the chain, again, to mitigate against what you're saying. And what have we done? Mortgage today is around 17%. What we have done is that we have now reduced the mortgage. We are using the fund to mitigate the mortgage that you pay. And it is now gazetted that the people who will buy social houses, their mortgage will be at 3%. The people who will buy affordable houses, their mortgage will be at 6%. And the people who will be buying the market houses, we will reduce their mortgage by half. Even you. Instead of paying 18, 17, 18%, you will now have an opportunity to pay at 7%. So that way, we have carried everybody, making sure that everybody who is paying has a chance to own a house. And that is how we are delivering.
Mr. President, on the question of accountability, because it is good that you highlight what happened at the public participation, and you say that Kenyans said they don't want it as it was structured at that time. You also attribute responsibility to Parliament that they decided it should be a levy. Then you say, yourself, you said, let us change how it works. So I see a bit of distribution of responsibility. But did Kenyans tell you they wanted to be a levy or a tax?
What Kenyans told me is that they want jobs. Yeah?
On that particular question,
Kenyans
the participation
me,
was on the housing levy, Mr. President.
I was, but you know, when Kenyans tell you they want jobs, it is you as a leader to figure out where those jobs are going to come from.
And so you presented a housing levy in the finance bill of 2023.
I presented to the people of Kenya housing, and I told them I am going to create jobs using this housing. And they agreed with me. And I have created jobs using housing. The mechanism of delivery could be this way or that way. Did I make a commitment to the people of Kenya that I'm going to implement housing? Yes. Did I tell them we will create jobs using housing? Yes. Have I implemented the program on housing? Yes. Have I created jobs using housing? Yes.
That you did and you are doing.
And you see,
Mr. President, sorry for this, but Mr. President, you are saying that you promised all those things and you are doing. But when people tell you, we don't want it, it is too expensive for us, you change it from a levy, from housing fund, from a contribution to a tax that is not even, you can't recoup it after the 7 years. How did the translation into that become?
You see, Sam, you know, you're splitting hairs.
I'm not splitting.
Yes, you are. Because what you are saying, you're trying to find fault. What is the greater good? What is the national interest? I mean, to you, does creating 120,000 jobs register anything good?
It is a good thing, but I'm asking you about public participation
That's making sure that an ordinary person who would otherwise never have a chance to own a home, now they have a chance to own a home. Does that make sense to anybody? Yes, it does.
And the process.
So, you see, if you pass an exam with 80%, it's an A, my brother. it may have not be 100% what I wanted, but it is 80% what I wanted. It is doing 80% of the job. Surely give me some marks.
Mr. President, the question is at what cost? At what cost, Mr. President? Because granted, the people told you they need jobs. This means they do not have the jobs. This means they do not have money in their pockets. And in response, what you're doing is taxing them further.
But let me ask you, my dear sister, the people who are working today did not have a job, right? Those are the people in the street. They didn't have a job. The people who have a job have had to pay 1.5%. 1.5% so that we can give a job to somebody else. And for your information, that somebody else that is getting a job is a taxpayer. They contribute to what we eventually earn. Is it too much for us as public servants who earn a salary to give 1.5% of our salary so that somebody else, another Kenyan, who is also a taxpayer, who also deserves something, they don't have a job because the job maybe they would have, I have. But I'm being asked, contribute 1.5% so that that other Kenyan who is walking in the street can have a job.
But it's not just that, Mr. President.
Let me just finish. They too can own a home the same way you own a home. I don't think that is being asked.
It's not just that, Mr. President.
Bado hujalijibu la mwenzangu Wafula pale. Amesema iweje wakati huu ndio munaleta tuseme hizi taxations nyingi, mumeanza na affordable housing na bado hatuja elewa vizuri zaidi, tuko kwa health, bado tunajaribu taxations. Kwa nini zimekuja kwa wakati mmoja kiasi cha kwamba Mkenya anasikia uzito? Kwa nini isikwende step by step kiasi cha kwamba hata Mkenya atajua ni kweli tunasonga mbele lakini si finyiki, maisha yako sawa?
Wacha nikueleze. Mambo ya health kwa mfano. It is the profiling, it is the spin that you people many people, let me not accuse you, many people are spinning it. What are we doing? What are we doing in health? We are saying in health, we want to reduce those who are, and they are, by the way, the majority of the people who are, when I spoke about hustlers, people thought I was not serious. I was very serious. That is why I am saying, those of us who have a job, let's contribute 1.5%, good people, so that those of us who are hustlers, the people in the street, can, even them, they can have a job. They now have 120,000 of them on a job. That's number one. On this, on the health, what are we doing? We are saying three things. Number one, for the first time, every Kenyan, even those who today cannot afford nothing, they will have a health insurance. For the first time. Number two, those who, and the kind of unfairness that there can be. Mama Mboga is paying 10% of our income for health insurance. William Ruto, the president of Kenya, is paying 0.001%. Why? All we are saying is, let everybody pay an equal percentage of what they earn. Is that too much to ask? What will happen? The people who are paying 500 will come down to 300. Is there anybody saying that there are people who will get an insurance cover who do not have? No. Are there people who are saying that those at the bottom of the pyramid will reduce their money or their contribution from 500 to 300? No. The people who are talking are not talking about those things because they are not convenient and because many of us believe those people don't matter. I want to tell you, my friends, those people are also Kenyans. They matter the same way we do. Let us give them a chance.
And Mr. President,
let us give them a chance to also participate in Kenya. Let us give that fellow, that mama who has no chance. And let me tell you, for the first time, a person who would otherwise die of cancer or diabetes or hypertension because when they go to hospital, they are told they don't have the money. For the first time, we have a special kitty which all of us will contribute and give everybody a chance at life. I mean, my friends, all we are saying is, let us have a country where nobody is left behind.
Maybe the question...
Because we are just thinking about ourselves. We are discussing how our salary is going to be, how 1.5% of our salary. There are people who have never seen who have never seen a pay slip. There are people who really, genuinely, don't have a chance at life. I am asking the rest of Kenya, please, let us give a chance at life to many more Kenyans than those of us who are employed. We are only 3 million. We have 10 million people out there.
Mheshimiwa Rais, umesema kwamba makato haya mapya ya bima ya afya yatashughulikia kila Mkenya kupata matibabu. Na kwa Wakenya ambao hawana uwezo wa kulipia bima hii, mtawashughulikia vipi kama serikali?
Kabisa, you have asked me the best question. Ukisoma sheria mpya ambayo tumepitisha hizi sheria 4, tumesema wale wa Kenya ambao hawawezi kulipa, serikali ya Kenya tutawalipia. Kila mtu atakuwa na bima ya afya.
Uko na takwimu ni Wakenya wangapi?
Na wale tayari tuko na wale ambao wako katika program hii yetu ya social cash transfer. They are about 2 million. But my estimate is that another 3 million will be in that category. People who cannot afford. Hawa pia watu karibu 5 milioni watapata bima ya afya, italipwa na serikali ya Kenya katika mpango mpya. Jameni, na wauliza wa Kenya, hata na wao ni wa Kenya, tuwafikirie. Na wale wako chini pale, karibu wa Kenya wengine karibu 8 milioni 9 ambao wanalipa saa hizi shilingi 500, tutawapunguzia shilingi 300 kwa mwezi. Na wale hawana uwezo kabisa tutawalipia. Na jambo lingine la muhimu zaidi, wacha niwaambie, hii ni ya muhimu na Wakenya wasikie. Pesa ya NHIF kwa sasa karibu 50% inabebwa na watu wanafanya kitu inaitwa fake claims. Mumesikia kwa mfano kuna hospitali moja hapa Kino. Mumesikia? Ilikuwa kwa vyombo vya habari. Ati wanafanya operation ya upasuaji kuzidi Kenyatta, Aga Khan na hospitali zingine zote combined. Ni nini wanafanya? Ukora mtupu. Yeah? Wanaenda saa zingine wanatangaza ati kuna medical camp. Lakini ile medical camp sio eti ya ukweli, ni kukusanya wagonjwa. Alafu wanachukua majina ya hao watu, wanakuja wanajaza form ya NHIF, wanawalipia wao. Alafu bila ya wale kujua, wanaenda kuclaim pale NHIF. Ndio sababu tumeweka sheria maalum inaitwa Digital Health Bill ama law, ambayo sasa itatusaidia kufunga hiyo mambo yote. Na ndio sababu Sam, nikuambie, ndio unaona wewe Wafula usikize vizuri, ndio unaona wale wamepeleka makesi kotini ndio wawa, kwa sababu hawataki hii sheria. Ndio wanaendesha hii propaganda kubwa, iko shida kubwa sana, Wakenya wapinge hii mambo ya health, kwa sababu wanataka kuendelea kuiba pesa ya wananchi ama ya afya.
Kwa nini usiwafungulia mashtaka, Mheshimiwa Rais?
Wale tayari tumewashawafungulia mashtaka na tayari tutawapeleka kotini, kwa sababu we want to make sure, my friends, wakati unaona kesi iko kotini, imetumwa kotini na watu ambao ni beneficiaries ya the kind of corruption that is going on in NHIF. That is why they don't want us to change the law. That is why they have put together big cases to stop the laws we have changed, because these laws will change and seal the loopholes they've been using to steal our money. And I am very determined, by the way, to stop them. And I will stop them.
Mr. President,
because
yes,
we have dissected the problem properly. And we want a country that leaves nobody behind. That is why we have the Digital Health Bill. We have the Social Health Authority that is going to make sure that we carry everybody along.
Right.
And I am very confident when the court finally sits, they will see the value we have in this bill. I am not a madman.
Right. And Mr. President,
to do things that I know are not good for the country. But also, I am this one person. You know, the problem we've had in Kenya, my dear sister, is that leaders have never wanted to do the right thing. We know what is right, but we want to do what is convenient. We want to do what is politically right. I have decided, as William Ruto, that we have been looking for a guy to bail the cat. I will do it. We have been looking for a person to blame when we do the right thing. I'm ready to carry any blame. Okay. But I must do one thing. I must do what is right, and I must sort out our country. We've been postponing this, you know, and people would rather, and many people ask me, oh, you know, the way you're going, you will not get a second term. You know, let me tell you, I am very clear in my mind. I was not elected to look for a second term. I was elected to get the country out of the mess. I was elected to create jobs. I was elected to implement universal health coverage that has been on our cards forever. I intend to do precisely that. Right. Many people, including my friends who are religious leaders, they have told me, oh, you see, you know, even though you said this, you must not do it. You know, that is what even the opposition is. They wrote in their manifesto, the housing, but now when it comes to implement it, they don't want to do it because they want us to continue the same thing, to lie to the people. To lie to the people, we are going to do this. When you don't mean it, we're going to do this.
Mr. President,
for the first time,
yes,
I meant everything that I wrote in that manifesto. Right. And I have every intention to make sure that I implement it because I know finally the people of Kenya will know that I did the right thing and they will reward me accordingly.
Sam, maybe just a question that still remains.
Just a moment, yeah? Yes. Because we need to transition in the next few minutes to the question of corruption and the war against it. Yeah. But you're saying something, I have read the bill, and most of us have, I mean, the laws now, and they're quite transformative, so to speak. But then again, the process is as important. I have heard you on several occasions saying that the contribution to the Social Health Insurance Fund will be 2.75%, so that it is equal across board. Your Cabinet Secretary, Nakhumi Chawafula, says that I had actually said it was going to be 2.75%, but capped at 5,000 shillings. And I wonder, because the law as it is says that the Cabinet Secretary shall bring regulations to the floor of the House. That has not happened. You are speaking about 2.75% without a cap. USCS is saying with a cap. We have had the experience of rates being proposed. Just hold on.
I didn't tell you that there will be no cap. I told you 2.7% provide equity. What will happen is we are taking the regulations to the public. Yeah, because that's what is required of us.
So what is the rate?
And many Kenyans, it's 2.57, it's 2.75. Many Kenyans will speak to it. You know, whatever Kenyans will speak to it, they will look at it this way, they will look at it that way. It will go to Parliament. Parliament will speak to it. Finally, the final product will come from public participation.
And that is the essence of my question, Mr. President, if I may conclude it. That is the essence of the question, because Kenyans will speak. It will go to the floor of the House. They spoke on housing levy. It went to the floor of the House. It was changed, totally different from what was taken to the people. How shall we trust the process?
You know, that's what democracy is all about. You know, many people actually have told me, what you're trying to do in Kenya is not possible. Because many countries that are democratic, you cannot do this. For you to do this, you have to be like country X, where the president says, and it's final. You know, that is what happened in other countries. I don't want to mention countries. Yeah, this only happens in countries that are not democratic. But I'm telling them, I will persuade the people of Kenya. That's why I'm sitting here. I am sitting here to persuade the people of Kenya, so that because I know what we are doing is not normal. And by the way, it is not that I expected that it was going to be smooth sailing. I knew it was going to be difficult. Because what I am trying to do is transformative. What I am trying to do is to change Kenya. I am challenging the status quo. I am challenging what has always been there, the norms. And that's why even you guys, you look at me and you're wondering. But, you know, that's how we are going to change a country. Changing a country is not a walk in the park.
Utahusisha wananchi katika hili swala?
Kabisa, si ndio nimekuambia Saa hizi tumepublish regulations. Sasa imeenda
bila mabadiliko yoyote kama
imeenda kwa wananchi.
Na je, hisia za mwananchi utazisikiza ama utazikumbatia?
Vile wananchi walibadilisha housing levy, si nilikubali. So ikienda bunge, ikienda kwa wananchi wenyewe waseme.
It is not citizens that changed it, it is parliament.
It's parliament.
You should go and read the public participation
report. I read it, and majority of them were opposed to the introduction of it.
Read it again, and Parliament took into account the views of the people who went to for public participation. And you see, Parliament is also an independent institution. You want me to dictate to Parliament, and I will not, Sam. You know that's not possible.
Mheshimiwa, naomba tuendelee na mjadala sasa katika swala la vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Umekuwa na umetoka kifua mbele, baadhi ya hotuba zako katika kipindi cha wiki moja pia imesisitiza sana swala hili la vita dhidi ya ufisadi. Lakini kwa upande mwingine hizi asasi ambazo zimepewa majukumu ya kutekeleza vita hivi pia ni kana kwamba vinasukumwa huku na kule. Kwa sababu gani? Nitakupatia mfano. Kesi ya Kimwarer na Aror hivi majuzi imetaja kuwa hakuna ushahidi wa kutosha. Kulikuwa na jitihada pale za tume ya ufisadi na maadili nchini katika kuhakikisha kwamba wanatengeneza kesi. Je, ina maana kwamba asasi zako kuna baadhi zinalegea katika kutekeleza wajibu wake, kwa mfano afisi ya DPP?
Kwanza niliwaambia Wakenya katika serikali yangu hakutakuwa na pesa ya kuibiwa. I think I made that statement. I said there will be no money to be stolen. And many people are wondering what that meant. Because what we are doing now, for example, and I will come back to your question, because we are talking about corruption.
Yep.
How do we put mechanisms in place to stop theft, corruption, pilferage? And I have told you the greatest enabler that is going to make us overcome the challenge of corruption is through digitization. It is the reason why I embarked on digitizing government services. From 350, now we are at 14,000. We were collecting 60 million on e-citizen every day. Today we are collecting 600 million every day. My plan is that by next year, we should be collecting minimum 2 billion shillings on e-citizen every day. What does that do? It stops the corrupt. It stops people stealing. It stops pilferage. And for your information, let me just give you a statistic. KWS, right? Their budget for a whole year was 4.3 billion, but given them actually a budget of 4.5 billion. In 6 months, because of e-citizen, in 6 months, they have collected 4.3 billion. Half the year, they have collected what we had, what they had been given as an estimate for the whole year, which means by the end of this year, they will double their collection. I'm just giving you one incident. So what will that do? That is how my plan on how to manage corruption, number one. Number two, I promised the people of Kenya that the independence of the judiciary is going to be sacrosanct. I can tell you for free that they have never received a telephone call from the president to tell them, manage this case in this manner, that manner, this corrupt person or that corrupt person. I promise the same to EACC, I promise the same to DCI, I promise the same to DPP. It is their responsibility. They ask me for support, and I have given as much support as I can muster to all these institutions. Let's come to the, are they doing what they should do? It is not for me to judge. It's for the people of Kenya to judge, because they report to us. I am telling them what I can within the separation of powers, that it is our expectation. That's why I'm speaking publicly, in public fora, to tell them, look, you know, the people of Kenya have expectations that those who are corrupt, and if there is anybody who is corrupt, has a matter, and they say, and one of the agencies say, oh, the president told us not to prosecute this person, I would say in public, in front of TV, they should tell me. because I will never do such a thing. Coming to Kimwarer, if you followed Kimwarer, I said in the campaign trail that the case for Kimwarer was a fraud, because it was. You know, because it was. Because that case was being used politically. And that is why I have said we do not want political cases. And that's why I have told the investigative agencies, I don't want them to help me with politics. I will do my politics. I will look for supporters. I will look for all these groups, you know, lobby groups and what have you. I will do politics. Them, they should dispense justice. And under my administration, there is nobody who will be prosecuted because of politics or politically, or because they are not aligned to this way and that way. But nobody is going to hide behind politics. That because you are a politician, or because you are a friend of the president, or because you are a relative of the president, you are not prosecuted. That one I have said in public. And I have told every cabinet minister, nobody should go to their office and tell them the president has sent them, or they are a relative of Mr. X or Mr. Y. I will not send anybody to any office to do anything. They must do their job in accordance with the law.
Mheshimiwa Rais, unaposema kesi ya Rod na Kimwarer ilikuwa ni utapeli, unamaanisha kwamba hakuna pesa zozote za mtozo ushuru zilizopotea katika kesi hii inayohusiana na mabwawa ya Rod na Kimwarer? Sisi ndio tulipoteza hiyo pesa, kwa sababu serikali wakati ilienda ikasimamisha the contractors went to court, right? Because they hadn't committed any crime. Number one, we were supposed to give them land to do the dam. You know, we didn't give them the land. The land was there, but somehow, and I don't want to accuse, I think we have said let's not talk about the past. Whoever was there decided they should not get the land because they wanted to frustrate the project. The thing disappeared. The DCI was mobilized to go and get the contractor in Itare. You know, up to today, nobody knows what the problem was with Itare. They went to court. We have had to go and negotiate. I have had to go and negotiate with Italy, for your information, for us to settle, because we were going to pay 40 billion for nothing, without anything on the ground. So we've had to negotiate.
So then, is there a correlation between your negotiations with the Italian government, and the president was actually here, of Italy that is there a relationship between that and the withdrawal of charges against all these accused persons?
No, ask the court. I mean, the court has been going on.
Yeah.
What did the court say? There were no witnesses, because what happened?
The court said this was a prosecution-driven acquittal, because there's no longer any cooperation. And the reason I'm asking this question is because you stood at the steps of the front of this building, and you said that you have agreed with the president of Italy to withdraw all cases against the farms in Italy, and Italy was also going to withdraw all cases against the government of Kenya.
Correct.
So I'm asking the question because initially there were several people that had been presented before court. Some of them, I think even the current central bank governor, Kameme. Is there a relationship? Because you said withdrawal will be done.
When we talked about...
Is there a consequence?
No. What we said about the withdrawal was they took us to court in London. We made a counterclaim just to make sure that we are not exposed. So when we made the counterclaim, then that's how the case was continuing. So we said, for that matter, they are going to withdraw their case in the arbitration court. We were going to do the same. It had nothing to do with the cases in Kenya, because the cases in Kenya were criminal. The cases in the arbitration were contractual. So these were very different cases. So the case has been going on in the Kenyan courts, mention after mention. I mean, and by the way, those cases were going on even before I came to office. They had been there for 3 years, and it hadn't moved 1 inch. Why?
Do you think there was any feasibility study done on the two dams? Do you know of any?
That is now for you to determine.
No, I'm asking
because,
you.
You have all the information because you know that there was supposed to be a feasibility study. You must be having the information.
I don't have the information. You're the president of Kenya.
Should be
What's their feasibility study?
What I can tell you is that contract of Kimwarer and Aror was signed with other contracts, similar contracts, in the front of State House here, in the presence of the president then. I wasn't even there.
And that's what I'm asking.
Those contracts were signed.
That's what I'm asking you. Are you aware of any feasibility study for the two?
I am aware that the contracts were as legitimate as they were signed.
Okay.
They were signed before two heads of government at that point in time. And if there was any problem with them, it should have come out in court.
The reason I'm asking that is because you then, I don't know, should I conclude that you don't have any information of any feasibility study? Because if there was none, then that is contrary to procurement laws.
If you know that there was none,
I'm asking, I don't know.
No, if you don't know, why are you asking?
I'm asking you.
No, if you don't know, why are you making an assertion on something that you don't know?
I've asked you a question.
What I can tell you is that, to the best of my knowledge, by the time contracts are progressed to a place where it is signed before a head of state, that those contracts should have met every condition.
And your predecessor found there was no feasibility study.
If he found out that there was no feasibility study, then he should have prosecuted the matter in the way it should have been.
Which happened. People were taken to court.
And then where did we end up with the contract? We end up with the government of Kenya.
Just on that issue,
and if it went to court for 3 years, why didn't it progress?
So we are looking at it even.
And the president then was in office. Why didn't it progress for 3 years? If it was as simple as there is no feasibility study, it should have been an open and shut case.
We have seen what the judge has actually said. And you look at a situation whereby the prosecution is literally paralyzed in court. And this is not just even Aror and Kimwarer. In the last 15 months, we've seen one case after the other collapse in court. And this is keeping Kenyans thinking. Yes, you came in and said at that time corruption was being weaponized. But now there's a feeling that now the law enforcers actually, it's a situation whereby there's protectionism instead of now the exact opposite of what was happening then. What do you tell Kenyans on this, where you find...
I want to tell the people of Kenya that I will discharge my responsibility in making sure that all independent institutions are appropriately facilitated. In fact, the DPP has sent a request on additional resources to hire more staff so that they can discharge their responsibility well, and I am looking at that request. We have given additional money to the judiciary. I will facilitate, my administration will facilitate all the independent agencies to discharge their responsibility. We will also dispense our responsibility in making sure that the judiciary is independent and doing their job. Yeah? That I will do. And I will make sure that nobody hides under the presidency, the government, friendship, anybody must be taken to court if they are committed crimes. But beyond that, I will also go the extra mile and prevent public money from being stolen. And that's what I'm doing. I am saying prevention is better than cure, they say. Yeah? That's why I'm saying for us to avoid unnecessary matters, let us see how we manage we manage public resources. And that's why I'm even telling, because there are some people who are still dodging the digitization process. They are still dodging the 222 government payment platform because they are used to paying things. In fact, I know, for example, some institutions, when we say they must pay through the digital platform, they are now asking for checks. Some of them are asking for back transfers because they don't want accountability. And I'm giving them a warning. We said by 31st of this month, every government service must be paid on e-citizen. And even land, which is the biggest challenge, we have now said the Ministry of Lands is going to be cashless, all the way to mashinani. Anybody, and I'm telling Kenyans here, anybody who asks you for cash for payment of a public service, look at them in the eye and tell them they are fraudsters.
Na Mheshimiwa Rais, katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi na uhuru wa taasisi mbalimbali na mihimili tofauti ya serikali, umejitangaza wazi wazi kwamba hutalegeza kamba katika vita dhidi ya ufisadi.
Hutalegeza kamba.
Naam, na umekuwa na kauli ambazo umekuwa ukizitumia, na nikikunukuu wakati mmoja kwa kule magharibi ukizungumzia kuhusu wafisadi ambao unaamini wamelemaza sekta ya viwanda vya sukari. Ulisema ima uhame Kenya, ama nikuweke jela, ama usafiri uende mbinguni. Hili halijaonekana kuendana vyema na wachechemuzi wa haki za binadamu. Mbona usiruhusu mahakama ifanye kazi yake?
Nimezuia, si nimesema tutakupeleka mahakamani.
Inachukuliwa kama kitisho.
Lakini wacha nikueleze ya kwamba jambo la ufisadi ni figurative language to drive home the point that this is no longer a joke. And for your information, because of what I did, we have managed to sort out the biggest cartel in Mumias.
Vitisho vinafanya kazi?
No, sio vitisho, ni kuambia tu watu ukweli. Kwamba mahali mambo imefika, hatuwezi kuendelea vile tunaendelea. Lazima tubadilishe mwenendo wetu. And I am telling you, let me repeat here, that for those people who are corrupt, please look for another country. Because it is not going to be business as usual. Even as we look places where we find, even as we do what we have to do to make sure that all Kenyans are we avoid pilferage, we avoid corruption. Even as we do that, for those of the incorrigible characters, the people who benefit from corruption, the people who try even to influence the criminal justice system, you know, the people who beneficiaries, like what I talked to you about. I mean, surely, the people who are going to court to stop, you know, implementation of programs that are public, you know, these are, and you know very well, you can see their fingerprints, that these are beneficiaries of corruption. They are so daring with impunity that they want to manipulate the whole system.
But
it is the same thing.
Isn't that democracy, really, Mr. President?
Is it democracy to steal?
No, sorry.
Going to
I'm
court.
talking about the question of going to court, especially for the programs you're talking about.
No, I mean, I have no problem. I'm not complaining. I've said they've gone to court, but I'm going to call them out that I know you. I know the fellows who have gone to court. I know the fellows who are sponsoring this, because I know them. They will not hide, because I can see their fingerprints. Let me give you an example. I told the people of Kenya that we need to increase our savings as a percentage of our GDP, that we are doing very badly. Countries like China are at 55%. We are at 12, right? How do we build our savings? You know, there are characters who went to court to say, let us continue paying 200 shillings, you know? And then Kenya is rated among the last countries on age-old poverty, you know? Because if you save 200 shillings, Bwana Wafula, how much money, surely? We have so many people. And that is how we do not have a pool of resources in Kenya that we can use to drive our own development. That's why we go borrowing left, right, and center. So we went to court, right? They went to court. I mean, we passed the law 2014. They went to court. They stalled the thing 9 years, imagine, taking us from one courtroom to another. Then I called them and I told them, look at me in the eye, my friends. You have to stop this shit. You have to stop, you have to stop this nonsense. Yeah, it cannot continue like this, right? And they realized that I was not joking, you know? So we agreed on an out-of-court settlement because they knew very well that they were beneficiaries of this whole conundrum. What has happened? Just let me tell you. We have wasted 9 years. What has happened today is that we were collecting about 1.3 billion at NSSF. Today, we are collecting 6.5 billion every month at NSSF. We are going to double Sam, we are going to double the amount of money in our savings in the next 4 years, just as I told the country. You know, that is transformative. But it has taken some, you know, tough engagement with corrupt people, right. You know, telling them it cannot continue like this. And I know when I believe this is the right thing, I go out of my way. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, I have been elected by ordinary people. They cannot do what I can do. They have given me the opportunity to do it for them.
Right.
So that we can begin even, the moment we have savings, we can even begin to reduce interest rates because we are talking about our own money. Right. We're not looking for money from other countries.
Mr. President.
This is how we're going to transform Kenya.
Mr. President, it's been 2 hours. My water is drained. Please sip yours as we transition to the next conversation, which is on governance issues, and Grace is going to take us through that.
Right, Mr. President, and this is basically point blank. Are you concerned about the performance of some of the people working under you, in particular cabinet secretaries? We saw you say that some CSs and PSs are clueless about their dockets sometime back this year. And there was this report released by TIFA just about 2 days ago, which placed some 5 CSs at the bottom. And unfortunately, these 5 are part or are at the heart of Kenya's economy. Energy CS was at the bottom. Gender CS, Treasury CS, Water CS, Land CS. Are you concerned about their performance, and what are you intending to do about it, Mr. President?
Number one, I don't believe in TIFA.
Why don't you?
Because TIFA is a fraud. TIFA and all these opinion poll people, they are paid.
By who?
Whoever pays them. Because
but you just said they
told us many stories. If it was TIFA, I would not be president. They said I would never win. They made all manner of allegations. So please, let's not talk about opinion polls. Let's not talk about TIFA. And I have no quarrel with them when I kuendelea na kusema ile wanasema, which is okay. Let's go to the performance, minus TIFA. Yeah?
But we can see the results. We can see the results because...
Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying we can see the results. You have dismissed TIFA, but say energy, which is at the bottom. This is definitely here because of the frequent power outages that have been experienced in the country. Yeah. So it has to be true.
It is not true. Let me tell you that, yes, we've had about 4 different blackouts. And there is a reason for it, you know. And I want to tell the people of Kenya that, yes, there's a problem. The problem is not about generation, because we have enough power in the grid. The problem is about investment. We haven't invested in our transmission lines and distribution lines in the last 8 years. Why haven't we invested? We didn't have a plan, number one, a clear plan. And where we had a plan, many things went wrong. For example, the 3 or 4 lines that are giving us real trouble, yeah, are lines that have been in court for like 7 years, you know. We had a Spanish engagement with another group called Africa 50 that would help us connect the power from Takwel, the power from Ethiopia, and the power from Uganda into the grid, but those were never implemented. When I came into office, the first thing I did was, for example, there were transformers at the port for 5 years, and it only required 500 million. I paid it one day. That is why today we have connected power to Ortum. We are connecting power to Kitale from Takwel. We have so much power in Takwel, we cannot deliver it because there is no transmission line. What have we done? To be fair to, and I am not defending Davis, I just don't want him to be crucified for a problem that comes from afar. So what have we done? We have finally negotiated. I went to Korea. I negotiated a facility of 9 billion shillings. We are going to do 200 kilometers of transmission line, the ones that are part of what is causing the problem. We have finalized the procurement. Those will be constructed. We've also decided that because we do not have sufficient resources, we are going to work with the private sector. So we have another 8 lines, a total of 607 kilometers of transmission line that we have concessioned to a private sector for them to build the lines. And because we already have the law on wheeling charge, they will construct the lines, we will pay them as they transport our power. So we have a plan. And number three, we want to invest about maybe $100 or $120 million to island the supply of power, so that we will create about 5 zones. We already have 4 in place in terms of design, so that if there is a problem with power in one corner, it doesn't shut out the whole country, so that we isolate different places. It was supposed to be a factor of investment. And why is this the case, Sam? Just to, what we have done in the last 10 years, we have increased the number of people we are supplying electricity to from 2.3 million households to 9.4 million households. There should have been a commensurate investment to make sure that the transmission lines are strong enough to deliver power. So that was the gap.
But Mr. President, the bigger question is about yourself. You spoke to the nation. I think you are swearing in, was it CSs or who were you swearing in? And you said that you have a challenge with some of your cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. There's certain things they do not know. In fact, you know more than they do.
I say,
how much of that is still a problem?
How much, when I said that, I was telling my CSs that read. If you remember the context, I told them, look, read briefs, understand your subject, understand your ministry, be on top of it. Because the moment I know more than you do about your ministry, then there is a problem, right? That was the context on.
Has it changed?
And what we have done concurrently, is we've had retreats of a cabinet. Yeah. We had one in Laikipia. We had another one recently. We are having one in February, just to make sure that we hem in everybody so that we are all aligned in the same direction. I want to tell you that many ministers, many PSS are now on the rhythm. They now understand where we want to go. And going back to what my sister said.
Grace.
What Grace said. There is all that around, because the economy is difficult. So you will find people saying this must be the man who is causing problems. We have a problem with energy. Then it is easy to blame the minister. But let me say a broader thing, in this context, that to be able to move forward as a country, there are 3 important things that we must do. Number 1, we must control debt. Number 2, we must control expenditure. And number 3, we must find revenue. We must find revenue. Yes, I have gone out of my way, and I think we have a handle on debt. Mm-hmm. We're managing debt. Many Kenyans today are paying taxes. I am making sure that through digitization, we manage to collect as much as possible, and it is not lost. I know it is painful on some on Kenyans that they've had to pay more, but this is temporary, and this is work in progress. We are going to see how to improve that. The third most important thing, which is important to me, is how we control expenditure. apart from cutting down on excesses, we also need to look at opportunities. Do you know that we have 287 agencies of government, parastatals and companies? 287. How much do I spend on these agencies every year? 250 billion. Yeah. If I could save 50, 60, 70 billion from these organizations, I would do a lot more, and I would not be pushing more people in their tax direction. And that is why we changed the law to facilitate privatization, to facilitate strategic investment, to facilitate merger of some companies, and to facilitate closure of some. Let me give you an example, because many people have been asking, so why does the government want to sell, this company and this company and this company and this company? Taxpayers' money is being used, right, to support many of these companies. Let me give you an example. I know many people are very sentimental about KICC. We said we want to privatize KICC. Let me explain to the people of Kenya. KICC is an iconic building. Mm-hmm. It is the center of the city. Mm. All of us, including myself. When I came first to Nairobi, I came to that photograph place where we are holding KICC at the top. And that will continue. People will continue taking photographs at KICC. But that's not why KICC was not built. That was not why KICC was built. It was not built for photographs. It was built as a national asset. Mm-hmm. Let me tell the people of Kenya, KICC today is valued at 30 billion, right? How much money do we get from KICC? Last year we got 29 million. The other year we got, I think, 40 million. How much? 40 million. What a waste, Because it is being managed inefficiently. I had to put 1.8 billion shillings to make it usable for Africa Climate Summit. Just imagine. So what I'm saying is, instead of having KICC as an office block, the whole of that KICC there has offices of this person and that person, they are paying nothing.
Right.
Yeah? Why don't we transform KICC for it to become the international conference center that it was built to be?
Right.
Right?
So when
just wait, the international conference center. And you know how much money we should be making from KICC if it is worth 30 billion? Even nominally, we should be getting 3 billion shillings a year. How much are we getting? We are not getting 3 billion. We are getting 29 million.
But Mr. President,
this is an asset of Kenya.
Mr. President,
this is a property of the
that
people
question about
Kenya.
Privatization of KICC, for instance, of course, there's work that has to be done, public participation, people give their views, and
correct.
Eventually the decision is made. So is the intention to sell it all, or is it a portion of it?
The intention is to commercialize. The intention is to have a mechanism, a strategic investor, so that we need to make it a true conference facility. And if we make it a truly conference facility, it will give us more than 3 billion shillings a year. Today, we are getting 29 million. If you ask any ordinary Kenyan, would we rather continue getting 29 million? Would we do a strategic investment that would give us 3 or 4 or 5?
Kwa hivyo kumaanisha Mheshimiwa Rais, changamoto inayoikumba KICC imepita ufahamu wa kwa serikali kuweza kuihakikisha kwamba inapata kile inachofaa kupata mpaka mnakwenda katika mkondo wa kuiprivatize.
Good question, my dear sister. KICC was not built yesterday. It's been there all these years. It has not happened in all the governments that came before me, right? And this is why I am proposing what I am proposing, so that we have a different, exactly answering your question. Wale hawakufanya, mimi nataka kufanya. I want to change KICC so that it makes money. Give me a chance to change KICC so that it makes money. Let me conclude by saying, because our international conference center at KICC is not working, It has no capacity to host. If you go there, if I didn't invest 1.8 billion, nobody wants to have a meeting in KICC because it is dark, it has no facility, it has no what, it is no toilets, nothing. So what has happened as a result of underperformance of KICC? Do you know that Intercon Hotel is closed? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you know that Hilton Hotel is closed? Do you know that Crown Plaza is closed? Do you know that all these other hotels are struggling? Because we have no international conference facility. Conference facilities are the ones that support our tourism sector, our convention sector, our hotel industry. We not only want to invest or get a strategic investor for KICC, I am also going to get a strategic investor for Bomas of Kenya. We need to build another conference facility in Kenya, in Bomas of Kenya, and we need to build maybe 2-3 hotels in Bomas of Kenya. It is what is going to change the fortunes of our country, especially the space around tourism. Right. So let me persuade the people of Kenya, right? KICC is not being sold to anybody. KICC is not being taken anywhere. KICC will remain there. Those who want to take photographs, you can continue taking photographs. But for heaven's sake, allow me to get a strategic investor, and I am not going to do it at night. In fact, many people have been saying maybe we change the law to make it easy for government property to be disposed. That's not true. The reason why the former law was changed is because since 2005, or is it 2009 when it was implemented, we have not privatized a single thing because it was convoluted and it never went anywhere. Let me give you,
Mr. President,
benefits. Allow me, because you know this is a very important thing to me.
Yes,
so this is so when we said we want to commercialize KICC, there are companies, Grace, there are companies like Postbank. Every morning when we open Postbank, we lose 3 million. In the last 5 years, we have lost 1 billion shillings every year. How much? 1 billion shillings every year. Because nobody wants to make a decision about Postbank. I want to make a decision about Postbank. I want to get the employees who are working in Postbank. I want to second them to other institutions. We close down Postbank. We stop losing 1 billion shillings. We stop losing 1 billion shillings every year, and we do something with the fund that is there instead of taking money from the fund and spending it. And you know, we are just being not prudent at all. Let me give you another example. Because you know, this is what I want to do. This is what we are talking about. When we talk about privatization, we are not talking about just sale. We are talking about 4-5 aspects. There are places that will be leased. There are others that you will get strategic investors. There are others that you will get that you will take to the stock exchange. Let me give you another example. Kenya Pipeline Company. Kenya Pipeline Company is a company that is worth 300 billion Kenya shillings. How much?
300 billion.
300 billion. How much money are the people of Kenya getting from Kenya Pipeline? I think it is only once or twice that we have gotten 1 billion a year. Otherwise, we get 200 million, we get 300 million. This company, Kenya Pipeline, should be giving the people of Kenya 30 billion shillings every year.
So is it mismanagement or?
No, it is just strategic thinking that is not there. And that is what I want to do. Okay. It is just strategic thinking.
What
so
of KCC?
I'll come back there. What we need to do is, you know, there are people who still that mentality, mali ya serikali si mali ya mtu. No. Mali ya serikali is our collective property, and it has to be managed well. And I have a responsibility to the people of Kenya that it is managed well, and I intend to manage it well. What have I done? I have changed policy. I brought the policy, because it is in my manifesto. I brought policy to cabinet. We said we need to change what we call government-owned enterprise policy. Ownership policy. As an owner, every shareholder demands money for their shares. We are the shareholders. We demand money from the companies that are owned by government. So what do we need to do, for example, in Kenya Pipeline?
Right.
Kenya Pipeline, there is nothing strategic about Kenya Pipeline. This is just a transporter of fuel. That's all, it's a matatu for fuel. So what do we need to do? First, I have told them this year, they must give us a dividend of 5 billion this year. And they're going to give it. Because I have told them, you have to stop all these shenanigans. This is public asset. We cannot be taxing Kenyans when there is an asset here that should be giving us money.
How do you arrive at that target?
Of?
5 billion.
It is the initial money, but it should actually be 30 billion every year, because any economist will tell you if your asset is this much, 10%, even if you were to, because if we were to sell Kenya Pipeline at 300 billion, we would get 300 billion, put it in a fixed deposit, we earn 30 billion every year. And yet we have the money sitting inside there.
Okay.
So let me conclude. Let me conclude by saying. Let me conclude by saying this. And I'm sorry, you know, I have to explain to the people of Kenya some of the things that are being, you know, misconstrued to mean that we're not being prudent. I brought policy and I said, we are going to make sure that every government asset gives money to the shareholder, the government of Kenya, so that we look for additional revenue, because we cannot borrow. We have pushed Kenya enough on taxes. The only other way to raise money is to sweat our assets. Yeah? Is to sweat our assets. We must get our assets to pay us dividends. That's why, for example, Kenya Power, we have removed 4 directors that I appointed into the board to allow the private sector to appoint directors, because we want it to be run with the private sector support, because we value what the private sector has to say. Let me conclude by saying the following. Why is this in the right direction? Let me answer what this good man has said. KCC, for example, we want to have a conversation with farmers. We want farmers to own KCC. We want to give them, we want to see with them, already dairy board were in India. The Indian equivalent of KCC is paying farmers higher than our KCC for the same product, and is charging the consumer lower than we are charging, because they have built in much more professionalism, much more. So we want to do that. And for Mwea, I know there is a problem, Mwea rice mill. We started Mwea rice mill way back in the 70s when there was no rice mill. Today, we have 100 rice mills in Mwea.
Mr. President,
we don't have to
we
own
may
it.
not
We want to give it.
Yes.
In fact, the reason why we are discussing Mwea rice mill is because we want to give it to farmers.
Okay.
And there is no other way of giving it unless you take it through a process.
Mr. President, we cannot exhaust the list of 11 farms that are to be privatized. But I want us to spend some time and talk about the diplomatic status of the country, of Kenya, in the regional and global space. Do you want to take us through that?
Yeah, pengine Mheshimiwa Rais unaweza kutueleza uhusiano wa Kenya na nchi zetu jirani. Tukizungumzia pengine kama Uganda upo vipi? Tunakumbuka kwamba kulikuwa na lile swala la uhusiano wako baina ya Rais Yoweri Museveni kuhusiana na oil deal. Sijui kama uhusiano wenu upo vipi kwa sasa?
Is that the only around that space?
No. I can ask
the question
about
is
Tanzania.
about...
Yeah, okay.
Now.
Yeah, I think you need to ask
exactly.
all of
Of late, we've not seen there's Mama Samia kiasi pia amekuwa kirusharusha maneno kuhusiana na namna taifa letu linavyoendeshwa na kadhalika, jambo ambalo tunatuuliza. Juzi umesema unakuja na visa free Kenya, watu watakuwa naingia. Je, katika muungano wetu pia wa Afrika Mashariki protocols zinasemaje kuhusiana na kauli ambayo ilitoa pamoja na uhusiano wa jumuiya?
There are also concerns on Jamhuri Day, the notable absence of Yoweri Museveni, Samia Suluhu Hassan, Paul Kagame, Evariste Ndayishimiye as part of that.
Okay, let me start with yours. Do they normally attend Jamhuri Day? No. So, I mean, how do you ask about absence of somebody who normally is not?
Were they invited?
We didn't invite them. And they came, you know, some of the people came just because we are East Africans. Do I attend the the national days of the other countries? I don't. So does that mean that there's a problem? No. So let's leave that one there. Number two, the relationship between Museveni and myself are perfect. The relationship between Kenya and Tanzania is perfect. The relationship between Kenya and Tanzania is perfect. On the visa issue, today, forget about my announcement, you don't need a visa to go to Tanzania. Neither do you need a visa to go to any country in East Africa. So the fact that we are actually formalizing what is already in place. So there is no contradiction between our visa-free and that. But let me say one more thing, if you allow me. I've answered that one quickly so that you can allow me to say something else. Let me say this, because, you know, let me tell you, the economy is very important to me. And that's why I want us to spend time there a bit. The economy is very important to me. I have told you that we need to raise revenue. Why am I targeting raising revenue from our assets? Look, for the example, Safaricom. Safaricom was a small department in telecom. Yeah? What did we do? We took it to privatization. We asked Vodafone to come and invest. We gave them 40%. Then we sold another 25% to the public in Kenya. Today, the small Safaricom that was at the corner in telecom, today is the largest company in Kenya. Today, the value of Safaricom is 360 billion. Today, Safaricom is supporting 1.2 million jobs. Today, Safaricom has given the government of Kenya, through taxes, in the last 15 years, 1.3 trillion shillings. Today, Safaricom gives government of Kenya 20 billion average every year as dividends. Now, my good brother, that is the value of privatization. A small company has become something. Let me give you another example, KCB. We privatized KCB. It was an underperforming institution then. Then the value of Safaricom, of KCB then was 600 million. That time, in 1988, when it was privatized. What is KCB today? KCB today, its value is about 120 billion at the current rate. 120 billion. It is in 7 countries. It has 12,000 employees. It has 33 million customers. The value of what privatization does. So let us accept as Kenyans that a company like Kenya Pipeline, we can privatize. It will give us money. It will give us revenue.
Right.
We should be able to look at what do we do with the port, what have other countries done, so that we reduce the pressure on taxes because we can raise more revenue by sweating assets that we have.
Mr. President, taking you back to the question of the region.
Yes.
And specifically, President Museveni said that it cannot be that you're going to continue buying oil from brokers. And in fact, there's a change of policy in the Republic of Uganda to an extent that now their eunuch is the one that is going to import fuel. And there are other conversations, I'm sure you've seen them, that they want to go through the central corridor. Of course, it's at the initial stage of those conversations. Is Kenya becoming less attractive, less competitive in the region? And what are we doing to ensure that we continue to enjoy the place we have in a competitive manner? Because the Central Bank of Kenya Governor Kameme has spoken to this question, saying that actually those other countries have better FDIs, as you speak.
And just because you want to answer those questions in a block, Mr. President, you were in China for many reasons, and Kenyans hope that you will come back with a deal on SGR so that we move away from a situation where our railway ended in the middle of nowhere. And you have Uganda that you need support from, and yet our relationship with our neighbors is becoming a concern if I would
According
say
to
that.
the media, it's becoming a concern.
So did we get something from China? Is Uganda part of the reasons why we didn't get the money to continue our SGR?
By the way, we approached China for the continuation of the railway as a package. It is a prosecution. Before I went to China, I had a conversation with President Museveni, and we agreed on the strategy to extend the railway. By the way, we have a strategy all the way. It is agreed, Kenya, Uganda, DRC, and even Congo-Brazzaville. We've all agreed that route, we will, all of us, and in fact, before I left China, the president of Congo-Brazzaville went to see the Chinese president with the same request for this SGR. Mm-hmm. So we are all aligned. So, and that tells you that we are good in the region. Your other question was
the oil brokers.
The oil issue. Yeah. We have agreed with Uganda on what to do. Uganda is a sovereign country. Yeah, they want to control their market. Mm-hmm. Their market at the moment is being controlled by oil companies in Uganda. Mm-hmm. They have made a different decision. For us, NOC, which is our national oil company, does not control fuel here because we are a free market. Yeah, fuel is brought by the private sector. Yeah. It is all these marketers that deal with the fuel. In Uganda, that has been the case. But Uganda is a sovereign country. If they decide that government wants to control using UNOC, that is a decision Uganda has made. As Kenya, we want to work, because we are a free market, we want to work with the oil marketing companies. All we do collectively is to source the product collectively. And then it is, so Uganda wants the product to go to UNOC in Uganda, and then UNOC distributes, which is fine by us.
Where does it pass? Through what port?
Through Mombasa. I think it's the only reasonable, if you look at all numbers, that is the only feasible route. Mm-hmm. What we have agreed with them is that we will agree on a structure where, using our pipeline, we will need to ration who uses the pipeline, because it is an asset.
Don't you think we're losing? Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the exports for this country is oil to Uganda, isn't it? So aren't we losing that?
Why are we losing? The oil will still go through here. They will still pay the charges they have been paying to go to Uganda. It is not that we have been making money from Uganda. They have been buying their own. They have been buying fuel from the same source as we do. The only thing is that we've been sourcing it together.
So, in the East African community, is there any conversation that countries like Uganda may choose to use the port in Tanzania?
Any country can choose whatever what is financially usable for them.
And therefore, what are you doing to ensure that we are competitive so that we don't lose?
We are very competitive, I can tell you. In fact, the Kenyan route is the only competitive route to go to Eastern DRC and to go to Uganda. In fact, we are having a conversation with Rwanda because they equally find this route, especially if we can connect from Kisumu across the Lake Victoria. That will even be a shorter route to Rwanda.
So, Mr. President, if we have agreed as a region on the railway infrastructure, and really is really important even for the economy, which you are passionate about, then what is the issue? Because first it was bankability of the project, and that was to be solved by the feasibility study. Then second, it was to be the region needed to come on board as a block so that the project can become viable into the long term. So if as a region we are aligned, what is the problem?
The challenge that we have now with the railway is twofold. Number one is that our headroom on debt, we cannot borrow anymore. So we have asked China to invest, not to lend us money. Yeah? We are having that conversation. And some of their companies are considering investing their money, instead of us borrowing, the money. We are also having a conversation as to what is the timing. You know, when do we want this delivered? So those are the conversations that are going on. As you know, our exposure is on the limit. So we cannot, and I will not, borrow any more money. And I have made that commitment to the people of Kenya. What we can do is we are looking at alternative options. Can we have a public-private partnership that will see China and Chinese companies invest in the pipeline? That is the conversation that we are having.
Mheshimiwa, mwisho, kuna swala la DRC hapa. Tuna tatizo lolote taifa la Kenya na DRC?
Hatuna matatizo kabisa na nchi jirani ya East Africa ya DRC. DRC wako na uchaguzi. Sisi kama wa Kenya tulienda kuwasaidia katika changamoto walizo nazo kwa mambo ya usalama. Jeshi letu lilienda pale, tukasimamisha vita ambayo ilikuwa inaenda pale, tukiwa pamoja na ndugu zetu wa kutoka Uganda, kutoka Burundi na kutoka South Sudan. Tumefanya kazi hiyo kwa muda wa mwaka mmoja. Baada ya mwaka mmoja wao wenyewe wamesema ya kwamba wanaona sasa msaada wetu imefika mwisho. Tukakubaliana, tukafanya summit hapa Arusha, tukakubaliana sasa sisi tutatafuta namna gradually to exit from the scene so that other countries can come and support them. Jana ama juzi kulikuwa na mkutano hapa Nairobi ya wananchi wa DRC, wakatoa statement. Watu wa DRC wakalalamika kwamba hiyo statement Kenya haingekubali hiyo statement itolewe pale. Msimamo wetu kama Kenya ni kwamba sisi ni nchi demokrasia. Na nyinyi mnajua, nyinyi ni watu wa vyombo vya habari. Hakuna mtu anauliza serikali kwenda kutoa taarifa yeyote. So they issued a statement from here. DRC wanted to know whether those people, we can arrest them. Then we told them, you know, Kenya is a democracy. We cannot arrest anybody who has issued a statement. We don't arrest people who have made us, we arrest criminals. If anybody has committed any criminality, we will go out of our way to deal with them. But issuing statements, how many people issue statements in Kenya against me? Every day, people are issuing statements left, right, and center. That is what the democracy is all about. And in any case, Kenya here has the biggest bureau. You guys know the biggest bureau of journalists from BBC. I don't know, CNN. I don't know where. Everybody is here. So, and that is what people are looking for. So, Kenya is a media hub.
By recalling the ambassador from Nairobi, what does that mean? Do you have a problem now?
If they decide that they want to recall our ambassador because a statement was issued in Nairobi, that is their right. But, you know, I cannot arrest anybody merely because they issued a statement. That is undemocratic. That is not how Kenya is. That is not the Kenya you all know. So, you know, we are all different. Countries are democracies in different ways.
Okay.
Mheshimiwa, mwisho kabisa kabla tujamaliza, siwezi kukuacha bila kuuliza swala la elimu. Tumepata malalamiko mengi sana. Nimepata jumbe nyingi tangu jana kuelezea kwamba tutakuwa na rais. Watu wengi ambao walikuwa wanafanya internship kuhusiana na JSS wanalalamika kwamba wanahitaji kupewa nafasi. Yani wapewe nafasi za kazi, manake muda wao unaishia mwezi huu, nafikiri tarehe 31. Umeweka mikakati gani ama mipango gani kuwaeka wakati ambapo pia junior secondary school inafaa kufungua mwezi wa Januari, waendelee na vile vile kuwe hakuna tatizo lolote kwa wazazi, wanafunzi na hata pia mikakati ya serikali kuhusiana na swala la elimu? Naomba tujibu hili wewe kama rais.
Mimi nitajibu.
Manake isiwe mambo ya kupeleka kwa wizara itafanya hivi.
Hapana, mimi nitakujibu.
Ndio.
Mambo ya wanafunzi ama walimu wa JSS, Januari watakuwa kazini. Kwa sababu tulitoa sera kama serikali ya kwamba sekta zote kabla ya kuajiriwa permanent and pensionable unafanya kazi internship miaka miwili. So they will complete, once they complete their internship of 2 years, we will hire everybody. So they need to relax. They need to go through the process. They will have the first priority when we hire teachers after the internship. And we are not doing internship only with teachers. We are doing internship with many other sectors. In fact, we've just gotten a cohort of interns at the public service, because internship is part of the learning process and the job process. So our interns that are doing a wonderful job as teachers, they need to relax. Nobody is going to take their place in January.
So there'll be what?
They will continue to complete. Yeah, they will continue to complete their internship
for 2 years.
2 years, which is a government policy, and that is understood. After the 2 years, they will be hired as we absorb others into internship to graduate slowly like that.
Okay. Unahakikishia walimu wote 50,000 hivi watapata kandarasi za kudumu baada ya miaka miwili.
Correct. Mr. President, we want to wind up, but a lot of conversations and many questions that are coming in, including one who is asking that, back to our earlier conversation about the housing levy and that question of accountability, do you know now how much has been collected from that levy and why it is?
I know that I don't have the final figures with me here, but I know we've been collecting ever since the law was passed, and it is on average about around 60 billion shillings or thereabout, plus or minus every month.
60 billion shillings?
Every month.
Yes. So
60 billion shillings?
I think so. I think that's the correct number.
So in a year that would be 60 times 12, what is that? 720 billion?
720.
Well, let me not, I don't know whether, no, maybe six, yeah, I think it is, sorry. I think it is about 6 billion, sorry, about 6 billion. So I think every year it is somewhere between 60 and 80 billion every year.
Where is that money now?
That money is already constructing houses.
Under what law? What framework?
There is already a framework. Only the court said we fine-tune the framework. That money is already constructing houses under the framework with the Ministry of Housing.
That?
Some of it is being used by, we've already allocated to National Housing Corporation. And the construction of houses is going full steam across Kenya. We have, by the way, we have 33 sites, active sites going on. I want to ask you to go to Mukuru. We are building 14,000 houses in Mukuru. If you go today to Mukuru, you will not think it is a slum.
So
you will think it is in Europe.
That is being financed by these resources?
Yes.
Not private investor resources?
No, this is being financed by these resources.
So if it's 6 billion every month, you're saying 60 to 80 each year?
Every year.
So how many houses does that construct?
It will depend, because we are constructing houses of between 400,000 per house. Others will be 1 million. Others will be 3 million. It is different categories.
No, that's the selling price. I'm talking about the cost.
But you know, the cost is commensurate with what you sell, because it depends with sizes. The smaller ones cost less. The 1 bedroom, the bed sitter, the 1 bedroom, the 2 bedroom, the 3 bedroom cost different. So it will depend on how many.
Mr. President, I asked that question because it's been a very stubborn question. Not many have an answer.
I have an answer.
Not your members of parliament, not your cabinet
secretaries. I have an answer. And in fact, if you call the ministry responsible, they will explain to you in detail.
Now?
Yes.
Okay.
In detail.
Mr. President,
yes.
The last question, which I was told to ask you, would be, is there hope?
Oh my goodness, let me tell you. We are going to change Kenya. I am very positive. I am very clear in my mind that I have only one mission: to change Kenya. And by the way, I have every intention to do it. And I know very well that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. But it is never too late to do the right thing. You cannot be wrong by doing the right thing. So I intend to transform Kenya. We have always known and wanted to do what we know is right. We know we should create jobs. We know what we need to do to create jobs. We know we should control our expenditure. We know what but the thing that has been lacking is somebody to lead the way in doing it. I intend to lead the way in doing it.
Mr. President,
in changing Kenya.
We have to leave it at that. I think that counts for a good closing remark, unless you have anything else to add.
No, let me appreciate all you guys, and let me appreciate the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya are a great people. Even in very difficult times, I find a lot of encouraging messages. Many people tell me, we know things are difficult, we know you are having a difficult time, but keep on keeping on, because we know that finally this country will change. And I have every intention to keep it here until Kenya changes.
Mr. President, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
This has been a conversation with the President of the Republic, President William Ruto, with representation from different media houses, that is KTN News, TV47, Nation Media Group, K24, KBC, and Citizen TV. Good night, good luck. My name is Sam Gituku. Bye for now.